Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
It comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio. Billy Liucci here on TexAgs Radio. Olin Buchanan.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
I think we're coming into this year with a new confidence.
Schools are like, we're freaking Texas A&M, man. Like,
That's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
You had no other option but one hand at that point.
Yeah, man, 50-50 ball, I got to come down with it.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
More than any other time since I've been an Aggie fan. Well, no, actually, since I've been at TexAgs, because I'm sure there's been other times. I've never seen so many ups and downs with our fan base, like in the same kind of week, month, kind of where we are in the world of Aggie football. Right now, a lot of ups when it comes to certain things, and then quickly the downs, such as everybody was super happy about the hire of Mike Elko, or most people I believe were. Mad about the Elijah Robinson situation, happy about Will Lee, mad we didn't get this transfer or that transfer, how come we're not getting big name transfers, happy about Colin Klein, but where the hell's the defensive coordinator? It's like, it's very divisive right now, and I'm just curious, what is it going to take for you all to be happy right now in the offseason? Is it going to take, really, we're going to have to wait 9 months or until the first game, until August 31st against Notre Dame to actually feel like, okay, I feel okay about things? It's okay to have the ups and downs. I'm just curious where you're at. Where do you feel, or call us up, let us know. Like, what do you want to feel better about where you are right now, considering everything that has transpired? 979-693-1150. You can call us or you can text us. We'll talk about it. It is TexAgs Radio. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse, CC Creations. Hello, Olin Buchanan.
Hello. You know, with your monologue, I got to thinking, yeah, the Aggies are kind of like my wife when she was pregnant. You know, they're kind of irritable.
Yeah.
They're kind of moody. Some days they feel great. Some days they're not feeling too good. They're complaining a little bit more than usual. But, you know, in 9 months, there's going to be a birth of a new season. Everybody's going to be happy, at least for a little while, until they start losing sleep over the Aggies. So it's just.
Look, what I do is I have faith in the man that they've coached, or they brought in as the head coach.
Yes,
for right now, until otherwise, right? Like, that's how I was with Jimbo. That's how I was with Fran. Like, until otherwise, I'm going to, and I hope there is no otherwise. I hope this is the guy, right? I believe in his opening press conference. I believed in him before they hired him. There's some real reasons to believe in it. So for now, I understand like where we would be today if not for making the change. So if we played it out and Jimbo were still the head coach, maybe hold on to a couple of guys. Maybe. Okay?
Probably.
Fine. But what has that gotten you the last 3 years?
Mediocrity.
And then we delay the inevitable at least another year. So this is part of doing business in today's college football. It's not ideal. I'm not mad about the defensive coordinator not being hired yet, because if the guy he wants has got a job that matters right now, or he's got a contract that kind of precludes him, it is what it is. Get the right guy. He's the defensive mind anyway. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah. I don't understand getting that bent out of shape about the coordinator right at this point.
Right.
Because there's this idea that you're losing recruits because there's not a defensive coordinator, but do you know that for a fact? I mean, in a best case scenario, yeah, the guy from Florida State would already be here, but you know, certain things just aren't going to happen. So, but I understand when you have a passionate, intense fan population,
yeah,
you know, they're going to be wanting to. They want to get the complete fix transformation started.
But I think some people
it's started, but they want the next big step in that is the defensive coordinator.
I think there's some people that want doom and gloom. to justify what they thought was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen. See, like there's a little bit like
there are those that would rather be right than happy. You know, I see that a lot, and not just here, just in America in general. So I can believe that's the case.
Let me address this because I saw some texts and some tweets, and some people reached out to me on email about I wasn't on the show yesterday. Yesterday morning before the show, we lost one of our dogs, got hit by a car on Arrington, so it was kind of a devastating morning on my way to work and take the kids to school. So thank you for the prayers. We lost Ray, a little boxer girl, 6 years old, unfortunately. So devastating day. I had a rough morning this morning as well, but thank you for the prayers. I just cherish the little ones too, right? The puppies, the family. Just cherish those that live in your home.
I love dogs more than I love most people, right?
Yeah.
And dogs are part of the family.
Yeah.
And gosh, if anything ever happened to Buck, I'd be devastated.
So unfortunately, we found her, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I do want to give a thank you as I take her to the vet, and it was just very traumatic, obviously. On my way out, Bob Palmares was there, and he saw me go in, and he came and gave me a hug. He knew what I was going through. So thank you, Bob. Good, great guy. And I didn't know I needed a hug at that point, but I needed that hug. So
yeah.
Anyway, let's talk some football. So again, about where we are. It's December. Look, I know that we've got signing day a few days away, and it's probably not the signing day that everybody wanted. Right? It's trending in a direction we may not get some guys that we expected to get.
Right.
That happens with a coaching change. The only thing that I like about the portal is, okay, maybe we can pick up some immediate help now to cover up some of what we lost and cover up maybe some potential freshmen that would take a couple years to develop.
Well, here's the thing. First of all, whenever you have a coaching change, you're going to lose some guys because guys that have been recruited and committed to a program, it's usually based on relationships. And, gosh, all of a sudden, the guy I've built the relationship with isn't here anymore, right? Or isn't going to be there. So you gotta expect a certain amount of that. And then you got to understand that it doesn't matter who the coach is. If program X is waiving more money than you are at certain guys, that's where they're going to go.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter who the coach is. So that's another reality of it.
It's just so interesting. 2021, right after the Orange Bowl, the momentum, what it felt like, everything felt like A&M was going in a certain direction, and there was doubt about what was happening at the University of Texas. And this offseason feels like everything's going great for Texas. They're in the playoffs, right? They're in the freaking playoffs. They're getting big-time recruits. Guys want to transfer there. The momentum is certainly in that direction right now. And right now, I'm not going to say the momentum's going the wrong way. I think we're a TBD. We're to be determined.
And the reason it's a TBD is because they did make the coaching change. Because, look, Texas hired a coach that installed let's call it an imaginative, updated offense.
Yep.
What did the kid from, was it Duncanville or someplace up in Dallas, the receiver, John Tate Cook, who tweeted, hey, A&M has the players, don't have the scheme.
Doesn't have the
scheme. And scheme does matter.
It does matter.
What I heard was the kid from Dripping Springs, the quarterback that went to Oregon, even though his parents were Aggies, he did not want to play in Jimbo Fisher's offense.
Right.
So it was that they brought in a coach with an imaginative offense. A&M had a coach with a stagnant offense. And let's just be honest, and this is not a criticism of Texas. This is actually a grudging admiration. They're paying a lot.
Well,
I'm not going to go like slice bread and say, oh, they're paying $80 million. They're bragging about it, and they should be.
Good for them.
That's the way the game's played now.
That's the economics of the game right now. I have thought for a long time that Texas was going to figure it out because of their brand, their resources, their money. By the way, I think Texas A&M We'll figure it out.
Yeah, they will.
Because of the brand, the resources, the money.
Hey,
right?
I've been I'm using this just as an analogy, but been the guy that if they're offering a new F-150, I'm offering an F-250.
What's the Goodfellas? Not Goodfellas. It's a movie.
Untouchables.
Untouchables. Give me the
you
line.
Send one of them they send one of yours to the hospital. You send one of theirs to the morgue. They pull a knife. You pull a gun. That's the way it's played. I mean, are Aggies going to step up to match? Can they?
Right.
Can they?
Can they? And I think they can. But I think you also have to have belief, right? I don't know what's going on in Austin. I don't know what's going on in Alabama. But if there's not belief behind it, that money dries up quickly.
That's true. But is it going to be, hey, I'm gonna, and I'd give my couple of bucks, but am I going to be able to win, and then I'll give you the money?
Right.
Or do you have to give the money to win? And I think we already know the answer to that.
Calvin says, Nuño, I want to agree with you that A&M will figure it out. Unfortunately, we haven't figured it out the last 25 years. Yeah. But yet, here we are listening to TexAgs trying to figure it out for them.
Are we going to, last one, are we going to say that 2020 didn't happen?
2020, I think sustained success.
Sustained success, yes. A&M has had pockets of success. And what they need, and because you've had success, that shows you can reach that.
Look,
I think you had coaches. I think it's as simple as coach. You had one coach that had some success and got lazy. You had another coach that had success and refused to acknowledge that, hey, even though I had some success, the way I'm doing things is kind of passé, and I need to change it.
So what's been the best 3 years? I mean, I don't remember. I'm going to have to look through these numbers. The best 3-year stretch of A&M football. 3 consecutive years of pretty darn good. How far do we have to go back?
Well, probably the first 3 years of Jimbo Fisher. I think everybody was happy. The first year they went 9-4,
8-5, 9-1.
Yeah.
But
now, if you go maybe the first 3 years of Kevin Sumlin.
11-2, 9-4, 8-5.
And then, since that, I know they won 3 conference championships in a row under R.C. Slocum.
I would say
and you got to go probably into the early 90s for
RC 97, 9 wins. RC 98, 11 wins. RC 99, 8 wins. That was a pretty good little run. Oh, RC 10-2, 12-1, 10-2, 10-0. There you go.
And
that's the last sustained success.
And they fired him.
But that's the last legitimate sustained success.
Right, and they fired him.
Man.
In fact, a athletic director didn't fire him. A former spy fired him. A president fired him.
That's right. That's right. All right, guys. You guys said we don't take a lot of calls. We're opening up the phone lines. What will make you happy for now? Happy-ish. Nobody's going to be happy until you get that sustained success. But happy-ish to feel like, all right, I'm all right with things right now. What is it going to take? 979-693-1150. You can call the Brian Foley Law Hotline. You can also text that number as well, 979-693-1150. Let's go behind the glass and say hi to Nick Savage. Nick, sorry about yesterday. You're like, wait, I'm doing the show?
Yeah,
buddy.
Okay. We anything, David, step in anytime. So, again, we're praying for you and your family. I know that's tough. But, yeah, just what would make me happy? I guess in the short term, I would say hold on to the group of commits you have now, and going into signing day, maybe add a couple players, to that group. I know they have some visitors coming in this weekend, looking at that visitor list Bronny put out. So, I mean, a potential to add to the class and maybe even add some transfers. So I think if they're able to do that, that's just sending the trajectory in a positive, positive direction.
Yeah, I like it. Look, I'm okay with where things are right now. I'm okay. I like the hire of Colin Klein. I like, obviously, strength and conditioning. I like
that.
There's a lot of things I like about it. Not everything's perfect yet. It's not going to be perfect when you go 5-7, 7-5. Hey, Sandman listening, he doesn't know why RC was let go, and he said, was he breaking rules? No, the way I remembered OB as a fan at the time, I think I was when was that, 98?
Yeah, they were not winning at the same level.
Right. But more than anything was he wasn't winning bowl games, correct? Wasn't that a big part of that?
I think they went 6-6 the year he got fired, and the program was starting to struggle. But I say this before, and I have a good friend that we disagree on this, even though I know someone who was actually in the room with RC when he went to Bud to see Bum Bright. But I've said it before, Texas, Oklahoma, LSU had hired new coaches.
Right.
They were investing heavily in their program. They were up. I was in Austin when they hired Mac Brown. They were putting money into for the players, into the like building players' lounges and all this stuff, and better locker rooms and better weight rooms and all this stuff, and making all the things that A&M has now.
Right.
But A&M was still behind, way behind, and so he didn't have the same. He was recruiting at a disadvantage, and recruiting was falling off. Now, when they had. And so they didn't have depth, and that really hurt him in his last year. So when they had a promise, he went out and talked to Bum Bright, and Bum Bright gave him money. Again, I know somebody who was in the room with him when Bum Bright was getting the check, and he talked to former players who were in the NFL saying, hey, would you contribute so we can get this started? And once he got that part started, then the university jumped in and started. And then they had the plans for what is now the Bright Complex. On the promise of that and the plans, he had put together a recruiting class that was going to be one of the best in the country. And if you'll talk to Reggie McNeil and Terrence Murphy, they'll tell you that Adrian Peterson was even though he hadn't committed, had told him he was going to come here. And they went like 6-6 that year. Depth was a huge issue, especially when they had injuries in the secondary, and they fired him. Never had a losing season. And he had put together what was going to be one of the best recruiting classes in the country just on the promise of the Bright Complex.
Right.
Well, when he got fired, that recruiting class scattered, and Adrian Peterson went to Oklahoma, and A&M they hired Franchione, and I think with the exception maybe 1 or 2 years, that started a dark period in Texas A&M football history.
I don't know if this is going to be optimism or not, but the last 2 Texas A&M coaches hired did have a better record than the coach before them that final year. So let's go through the history. Kevin Sumlin fired in 2017, went 7-6. The next year, Jimbo Fisher went 9-4. Okay. Mike Sherman fired at 7-6. Kevin Sumlin went 11-2. Unfortunately, the ones before that, Dennis Franchione
went like 4-8.
He went 4-8 after RC went 6-6, and Sherman went 4-8. After Franchione went 7-6. But the last 2 have gone in the right direction. So what I'm saying is maybe a 2-win better next year.
Well, that'd be great. But, Sherman, again, was fired by the president. And you could look at, with the exception of, I remember going in 2012 and thinking, this A&M team is loaded with talent. They just don't know who their quarterback is because their quarterback was a first-round pick.
Right.
But especially on offense, you knew that they were loaded with talent. I didn't even know Mike Evans was going to be good yet. But you knew you had Swope, and you knew you had Molina and all those offensive linemen. And you thought, man, they're pretty stacked. I remember writing a column saying, I think they're going to win 8 games. And people were saying, you're crazy. And then what do you know? I was underestimating them. Yeah. Because, of course, we didn't know that guy number 2. Didn't know what they had, but hey, give Sherman credit for bringing in that guy.
Yep. All right, let's do this. We need to check in at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. We'll do that in the next segment since we went so long. So, Luke, hold tight. We'll get to you here in a moment. Right now, OB, I don't got anything witty today because I'm just not in a witty mood.
Yeah.
But I still would like the food they have on Fargo's on a Friday because you don't have to get the beef.
Well, if you needed something to make you feel better, you could go in
4 C's?
to Fargo's and have the 4 C's.
Yeah.
You could have your catfish. You can have your coleslaw. I know you don't like coleslaw, but I do. Corn. Everybody loves corn. And crunchy hush puppies. I've never met anyone that didn't like crunchy hush puppies. So, and then, you can always be thinking about tomorrow, too, because tomorrow's a rip tip day.
Oh, I like rip tips. That you put
so
a
that's
little,
a rip tip day.
Little cup in there.
Heck
or it's
yeah.
a big cup. And just fill it up.
Heck
fill
yeah.
that bad boy up.
Yeah. So if you're feeling down, Fargo's put a smile on your face.
It will. Well, last night we were going to go out to dinner, but Fargo said it was late. We kind of just having one of those kind of days. It's like, Fargo's is already closed. So we just made do. We just made do. I owe you, Fargo's. Maybe today.
You know what? I went out to dinner last night too because we were celebrating, and it was too late. But you know what? With my son back in town, maybe I need to take him to
Fargo it up, buddy.
Yeah, that's right.
1701 South Texas Avenue in Bryan. Without a doubt, the what?
The best barbecue in Texas, i.e. the Galaxy.
You know that's your trademark.
Well, it's true.
Yeah, it's Fargo's. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. I'm David Nuño. He's Olin Buchanan, our Heisman Trophy voter. Let's check in at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center, and Aggies gather at the Angry Elephant. Luke Evangelist, what's up, buddy?
Hey, David, how are you doing? Okay.
How are you?
I'm good. Just want to give a couple shout-outs to a couple people who have graduated. It's graduation season at A&M. Cold Cheddar has officially graduated. I'm not sure if you know who that is.
We've had him in studio before.
Oh, okay, so you do know. Yes, he's very famous, very popular on the boards.
What a cheesy name.
You're good, OB. And then also Kendrick Rogers came back and finished his degree and graduated. And another person very special to TexAgs, Kennedy Cavan. I don't know how or why they let her walk the stage at graduation.
Did she trip?
Or how she even graduated. She almost did. She almost did trip. But she has officially graduated, and we're really sad that she's leaving. But congratulations to you, Kennedy, and to everyone else who graduated this week. And also another update I have, Edgerrin Cooper, seems like we talk about him every single day.
Edge.
No surprise here. He was named a first-team All-American by ESPN and the American Football Coaches Association, in addition to pretty much everyone else that has named him a first-team All-American.
What did John Harris say about him? LB1, I think is how he phrased it. He thinks he should be an early pick.
I would not be surprised. I mean, gosh, and I think he's just now emerging into what he could be.
Yeah.
I think, gosh, I'd wish he was coming back, but I understand, and I, selfishly, you wish he'd come back for your team, but you understand if I was in his position, I'd do the same thing. Of course, I'd go to the NFL. He's going to be a wealthy young man, and man, he deserves it. Imagine all the hogs he can kill with the monies he's going to make in the NFL.
Yeah. He'll still have a pickup truck, and he'll still go do what he does.
Those wild hogs better be on high alert.
Luke, what else you got for us, buddy? Your mic needs to be turned on.
My bad. I've got a couple text messages. I got excited there.
Dang,
David,
dude, that's like a total rookie move, and you've been here for so long. I'm sorry. I can't let that one slip. That's
okay,
embarrassing.
Nick, I get it. No, I totally get it. Well, I've got a text message from David in Houston, and now that my mic is finally on, I can read that text message. He said you have to start winning, getting to 10 wins more frequently for me to start feeling good about where things are at.
Okay, that's fair. I've always said that should be the expectations. I applaud this guy for having those kind of expectations. Expectations should turn into demands.
So remember there was a text that came in about RC was fired? I thought he was reassigned. He fired up. I don't consider that being fired. He was moved to a different position. LOL.
That's stupid. He's fired as football coach. If you want to play semantics, fine. He was the football coach. They removed him from that position. He was fired as the football coach.
But they loved him so much they kept him in the organization.
Yeah, they say, hey, I don't want to feel bad about it. So how about you become the assistant to somebody, and they put him over there. And
we don't want to fire you. We're going to make you the second in command in HR. But you're not going to write football columns anymore.
Right. It's just, if you want to feel like that you just want to be argumentative, say, he was reassigned. Look, he was fired as football coach. You can call it whatever you want. He was fired as being football coach.
Aaron and Brian, why don't you read this one, Luke, for us?
Yeah, Aaron and Brian says Texas hasn't had sustained success either. They were awful the last 2 seasons before this. If they make it to the college football playoff next year, then you could say they've sustained it.
That's true.
True-ish.
However, they are making the moves required for sustained success. There are no guarantees. There never are. But it sure seems like they are making the moves in that direction.
Have they won a national championship in this century?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, look, it's been a while, sure. But I can remember it.
I'm not going to celebrate it, right?
Right.
But I'm not going to, I'm not going to discount it. Look, if 3 years from now, if A&M is in the playoff and or in the Final Four, I'm going to be celebrating Mike Elko like crazy, the same way those derelicts over there are celebrating their guy.
I'm just curious and look, we're in a different day, but what speaks to these kids today? Like, is it really just about NIL? And not everybody's the same, right? But can you identify with a coach because of what his program is going to mean, what it's going to be like? I'd love to play for a guy that I just believe in, like, and then we'll figure out the NIL component after.
Well, you got to also wonder who's speaking to the kids and who influences them.
Yeah.
What if your dad is financially motivated? Or, how many kids at 18, if the dad is financially motivated and pushing them in a certain direction, how many kids at 18 are willing to defy him?
Right.
Maybe you have if you have a really good relationship with a coach, I think that's still going to be the number one thing. But what if you have a great relationship with a coach, and there's another coach you like? I mean, he's a good guy, but I like this guy better. But all of a sudden, the coach that I like, who's a good guy, comes in with a suitcase full of money. I know they don't actually do it that way, but what if
you
they
like
did?
them,
and you need it.
The need is a big part. And then
now I know what A&M wants to do And I think this absolutely makes sense. They would rather get you in, and then when you start playing at a high level, reward you rather than, kind of like remember the NFL? It used to be that the guys that made the most money on the team was the guy just drafted.
Yep.
And even the players said, okay, that's messed up.
That's weird.
And so they went into collective bargaining and changed that, and they put in the pay structure that they have now. But so that salary cap went to the guys that had been on the team for a while and playing at a high level, and they started making more. Well, in college football now, the idea is, hey, that's a very sound idea. Let's pay Edgerrin Cooper.
Right.
He's done it, except you got to get him on your team first.
By the way, that is Coffee Talk, presented by TexAgs Coffee. Beat the hell out of morning by going to texags.com/coffee. By the way, December 17th is the last day that people can buy a bag and get it delivered before Christmas. So make sure you jump on all that. When we come back, OB, let's do 3 things we want to see. All right, this weekend. Let's do that, and we'll talk some other big college football news out there. Right now, though, we're talking Heritage Films. That's Chance McClain's company. They make documentary films about families and family businesses and family ranches and just people important to you, right? They don't have to be your family, but that's what's important to us, right? Maybe it's even a story on your good times with your family pet. Chance can do any great story, and he is just the most creative guy I know. He's done movies, Broadway musicals. He's done radio shows, radio programs. Like, he's just done it all. And with Heritage Films, he's telling your story at the highest level, right? We're talking a 2-hour documentary that you will watch around the fireplace. I don't know why you'd watch it around the fireplace, but you watch around the TV with your family and enjoy it and really look back and reflect and make it a Facebook memory that lasts 2 hours. That's how cool it is getting a Heritage Film done. Then there's also the Year Flicks, which I think all of you who are parents out there should be paying attention to. The Year Flicks is awesome, right? Because with the Year Flicks, you get these benchmark videos about your kids. So you got a freshman in college, right? Let's tell that story, that 20-minute story, Q&A style, and then followed up with the sophomore year. And now they've picked their major, and then followed up with their junior year. They met their soulmate. Senior year, they're graduating. They're moving off to wherever, right? Like, that is so cool about this. And then you've got those stories documented and for the test of time. The website is yourheritagefilm.com. Yourheritagefilm.com, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Let's go back to the Angry Elephant Youth and Social Center with Luke Evangelist. Luke, we got a text from Chris that I think OB and I can tackle.
Yep, Chris said, "Hi, Nuño and Olin. I love the show. You mentioned the recruiting. Do you think Jimbo's buyout will have an impact on our NIL?"
If we take what Ross Bjork said, I mean, it's going to be done on a university level.
Right.
So, no.
No, I don't think so.
I still think, what did Billy say the other day? We're in the top 10 of NIL, right? I believe is what he said, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think maybe Ross said that. No, it was Billy. It was Billy. But regardless, we're in the top 10 of NIL. We should be able to compete. You know what's catching my attention, though?
What's that?
Ole Miss, again, doing really well with the portal.
Mm-hmm.
They're about to get that Prince guy, it looks like, from Florida's defensive line. They're retaining guys. I got to give him his props. I don't like him, but guy's building something.
Well, he's winning 10 games pretty consistently at Ole Miss. So he's a good coach.
Yeah.
And he has his formula, and quite frankly, the last couple of years, A&M's had more talent, and he's just outcoached A&M.
Yep. Let's run our mouths. 3 things that we want to see, brought to you by the Brazos Running Company, your local Aggie-owned specialty running store, where you can find Brooks on Hoka shoes located at Century Square below the Star Cinema Grill in College Station. Obi, give me a few things that you want to see.
Okay. Well, I'm on my way to Houston tomorrow morning to see the Aggies play basketball. I want to see them shoot well from three-point line or not shoot as often from there. Mm-hmm. I want to see them actually play the kind of defense that we have been accustomed to seeing a Buzz Williams teams play that we haven't seen as much yet. And I always say yet because I think it's always coming. And I just want to see the Aggies go out and beat UH.
Yeah, love it.
Get the biggest quad one win they will have had so far. They've already had a couple. But, man, if you go out and beat UH, man, a heck of a statement. And this is just throwing. I sure would like to see them actually have players from Houston.
That'd be nice.
Houston sure turns out a lot of good basketball players. Wish some of them were here.
Obi, I think ours is going to match a little bit.
Okay.
I want smarter threes, all right? In rhythm, not forced at the right time with maybe that extra pass where you hit that three where the defense collapses elsewhere and you're completely open. I want smart threes. If we're going to take threes, let's take smarter threes. Mm-hmm. Be more efficient with the three-point shooting. Here's one. Punch U of H in the mouth first. We already know that a Kelvin Sampson-led team is going to bring some physicality. Mm-hmm. They're going to play defense up and down the floor.
They're going to play defense.
And they're going to be able to shoot, right? But this particular season, they have not played a team at the level of A&M's experience or ability.
It's true.
So punch them in the freaking mouth early and let them have to, do to them what maybe Virginia did to you. Right? You dictate the tempo. You do it your way. Let them have to kind of feel their way through, but punch them in the mouth first. Those are the first 2. And here's one I asked for last weekend, and I got it. Another transfer of substance to come to Texas A&M. So Will Lee, that was a big deal.
That's a big one.
Willie, big deal. Sorry, I had to do it. Thank you to Luke. At least Luke laughed. Anyway, I want to see another one of a guy like that. Somebody were like, all right, that's a potential starter right there. Let's go.
Yeah, well, of course. I don't know who that would be.
Me either.
But I'm still celebrating Will Lee.
Yeah.
And that's a good one. So, I want to see all those things too.
Let's get back to basketball for a minute.
I want to see Wade Taylor play like the Wade Taylor that we, have come to expect, because he's typically so good. He had a rough night the other night. Now, Houston has their style of play, but I'm sure everybody's going to look at that Memphis game and see what Memphis did to take Wade out of his game and do something similar. Now, how's he going to adjust?
Well, here's my adjustment. I'm putting a lot of pressure on Boots. But if Boots can have a Boots-like performance, that will open up Wade. So I'm putting a lot of stock on both Boots and Henry, because Henry's got to hit some shots. He's got to attack the rim like he's been doing. But
he only took 5 shots.
I know. He needs to take more. He's got to take
I don't know that was because he didn't want to, right?
Right. But I think if Boots can have a pretty nice performance, it'll open up Wade.
Yeah.
And if that opens up Wade, it opens everybody else
He needs
up.
to have one of those Auburn, on the road against Auburn performances he had last year. What, did he have 31?
And you're not a big Kelvin Sampson guy, right?
I mean, I respect him. I I'm not one of those guys that say, oh, he's a cheater and all this. What did he do? Made some phone calls?
Yeah. I got to know him a little bit in my time in Houston. I like him a lot. I find him to be not only a really good coach, but like he just seems like a good dude. Like when I'm around him, with the way he is with his players, similar to Buzz, right? There's a certain level of family with that program, and I cover that program for many NCAA tournament runs. So let's listen to Kelvin talk a little bit about Buzz, because they're not similar, but they are. I know that's a Nuñoism, Nick, but what they demand of their players is very similar. What they expect, the commitment to defense and intensity. So here's Kelvin Sampson the other day.
Coach, what are your thoughts on the job Coach Buzz Williams has done at Texas A&M and what they do well this season?
Well, Buzz is one of those special coaches that's won everywhere he's been. I first started knowing Buzz when he was a young guy, and when I was at Oklahoma. And then, the job he did at Marquette, Virginia Tech, and now A&M doesn't surprise me. Buzz is a hard worker. Cares about his players. Players love playing for him. There's a great system that's based on playing hard, toughness, rebounding. He knows how to get his. He just knows how to get his kids to play the right way.
In a world of NIL, I love what Kelvin said right there. His players love playing for him, right? I don't know what everybody's NIL valuation is on the Aggie basketball team. I don't know. I feel like players that go pledge their future with Buzz typically want to play for Buzz Williams. Like there's a culture that he has established. And same with Kelvin Sampson, by the way, right? Not anybody can just show up and play for Kelvin Sampson. Not anybody can show up and play for Buzz Williams. And when you go there, you probably have some options to go elsewhere. And it strikes me that it's not about NIL when you come to Texas A&M basketball.
Well, I know we were talking about Manny Obaski, or with Manny Obaski yesterday, and he spoke about how important Buzz is to him and how much faith he has in Buzz and what a difference he's made. I think it's true. I mean, if you want to be critical of Buzz, you can say, well, they haven't won this or they haven't won that, or, they get slow starts or whatever. But the bottom line is his teams are typically good, and it's usually because, like Coach Sampson, they play hard for him. His guys play hard for him, and you don't play that hard for a coach typically unless you really like him.
Right.
And I think that's been the case. His players really like him.
Look, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. None of us do. But I expect A&M basketball to play differently than we saw the other day. And that might be blind faith. But this team typically makes adjustments and gets better.
Yeah, typically they have. And quite frankly, I mean, I'm looking at that game against Memphis, and I know they made a late run, right? And they scored a lot of garbage points when Memphis just was trying to make sure that, look, you can go ahead and score. We're not going to foul you and things like that. And so they made a run to make it closer than it really was. But the bottom line is you were, for the most part, competitive in a game in which you could not hit a three-point shot.
Yeah.
It took too many of them. You can learn from that. And, even the game at Virginia, that game was that was a difficult game because of all the travel. I don't want to make excuses, but it reminded me of that time when they lost to Tennessee in the SEC championship game when they had played
four
straight days. And it wasn't that, but it was kind of like because of all the travel involved.
Right.
I think they're still a good basketball team. They do need more offensively out of Wade Taylor. We all understand that. He knows that. And they need to get back to playing their caliber of defense. So when Wade breaks out of, whatever mini slump he's in. So when he breaks out of that, and when, because it's not if, it's when, they get to their playing the defense that they always eventually do, they're going to be one of the best teams in the country.
Yep. Let's hit a break, but before we do that, I want to read this from Dick Tandy on the YouTube page. Hope all is well. My question is, how many hit the transfer portal for academic reasons? And I'm with David. I trust Elko until he proves otherwise. Give him time. He knows more than we do. Plus, I'm over the new moon with our new strength and conditioning coach. As for the reasons for the portal, everybody's got their own reasons. Right. Some people go in the portal for academic reasons, and I don't know who those players are.
Yeah, I don't think there are any, but okay.
But I'm sure that happens. Some people hit the portal because they've been advised, hey, see what you're worth. See, it might be. And some people hit the portal because I want to get likes. I want to get courted. It's like there are people who look for jobs sometimes, even though they're not ready to leave a job, because they just want to feel that, like, you know, that excitement, right? Like, oh, I want to get interviewed. I want to see what this feels like. I want to get wined and dined. And 18 to 22-year-old kids that are impressionable like that, sure, they like that.
Some hit the portal because they're going to have an opportunity to play when they're not playing here. Look at everything, all the guys that left last year. A lot of them got to play, and most of them didn't make major contributions. And then some of them are going to follow a coach, or they have coach relationships.
Yep.
And then some are going to go for the money.
They're going to follow the money. Let's hit a break here.
It's the American way.
Caldwell Country Chevrolet, time Highway 21 in Caldwell, online at caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. They've got great deals on their website. They got great people that work there, and they got the best vehicles. So there you go. There's your 60-second spot in 10 seconds. You want a good deal, you want a good vehicle, and you want good customer service. You're going to get that there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Especially if you go online, you'll see all the cars that they have. So if you are, you know, in another part of the area, you're not in the Brazos Valley, you can start your search there. But if you're in the Brazos Valley, go out there. You'll see what I'm talking about. They got complimentary pickup for their service customers and valet. It is awesome the way they treat their customers. Great trade-in value. And, of course, that selection of vehicle out there, it is top notch. So you're going to get a great price and a great deal on your existing vehicle to help you get that new vehicle. About a 15-minute drive there, the edge of Bryan to the edge of Caldwell. Short conversation away. But you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the good people at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. It is TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Opie, it is now time to bank on it. Presented by Vera Bank, authentic relationship-based banking built for real life. Go see Joel Jackson and the team. Learn more at verabank.com. Are you ready to bank on something?
Yeah. You know what? First of all, I'm going to bank on Wade Taylor. I've just seen him be too good for too long, and I'm banking on him having a really bounce-back game and playing really well and leading those Aggies. I'm not sure that they're going to beat UH because UH is a really good team, but I think that you're going to see A&M go in and have a really strong game and have a chance to win, and I think Wade Taylor is going to be a big part of that.
I'm banking on the best performance from Texas A&M against a good team this year. I'm not talking about DePaul. That was ridiculously good. Like, we're not going to match that against the University of Houston. But I think it's going to be the best game we've seen A&M play against the Memphises, the Virginias, the Penn States, the Florida Atlantics. And I thought they looked pretty good in some of those games, right?
Yeah.
But this is going to be their best performance. Does that equate a win? I can't bank on that right now. But if they do that, it's going to be exactly what you just said, which is with a chance to win at the end.
Yeah.
I don't look at Houston as like the 1991 UNLV Running Rebels. I think they're really good, but I want to see what they do against quality teams. I love that 91 UNLV team.
That was a fun team.
You remember the starting lineup?
Stacey Ogman.
Greg Anthony?
Anderson
Hunt?
Anderson Hunt.
Yeah.
Moses Scurry.
That might have been the other one.
The center, Moses Scurry from San Jacinto Junior College.
Oh, from San Jack, huh?
San Jack.
How about that? But I don't think they're that team. I haven't watched them enough to know what they are. I just know they haven't played anybody. A&M has. A&M's got the guys. Just because they're out of the rankings right now doesn't mean they're not going to be the team that we expected them to be this year. It is always a process with this team. They get better as the year goes on, and nobody in the SEC is really scaring me either. I think Tennessee's going to be good. But no, so...
You know, I think that Iowa State win was a really, really good win.
Yeah, it was.
And I don't think Ohio State has lost except to A&M. I think that's the case. Unless I missed one lately. So, and then that FAU loss, I mean, that was without Henry Coleman for most of the game and Boots, and Wade played out of his mind, and they almost won that game.
They're 8-2. They just lost. Okay. And then, the game at Virginia, like I said, that was they lost to Penn State, by the way.
A team that A&M beat.
Yeah.
Did that go into overtime?
It looks like it just says 83-80.
Okay. I think the record looks really good, not just because they're 7-3, but because of the team. If you want, I hate to say it this way, but the caliber, because a loss is a loss, but it's the caliber of loss.
Yep.
You know, when you go play FAU and it's a game to the end and in Florida and you lose against a team that was the Final Four team last year and everybody back, that means, look, that ain't Wofford, okay? So,
right.
In fact, that loss probably means more than beating, some of the lesser teams on your schedule.
And let's go ahead and be honest. Like basketball, there's only 5 guys on the floor at one time. And when one guy is coming back from missing 3 games and another guy who you expected to be a starter, an integral piece, hasn't even played a second this year.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, it is... Had we been able to look in a crystal ball before the season started and knowing the non-conference schedules that they had, hey, you're only going to have Boots for these games and you're not going to have Julius Marble at all, they're probably doing a tad better than I would have predicted. Now, they need to get this. Fair. I would love for them to get this one.
They need it. But if they don't get it,
it ain't the end of the world.
It's not the ledge because, I always think about last year.
The Wofford was the ledge.
The Wofford was a ledge, and yet they finished second in the SEC and almost won it.
But I think it was Hop who said on this show he really wants to see them get hot to get that 5th seed to avoid what that second round matchup could look like.
Well, I think right now they're already on the verge of that because if they have a strong SEC one, because they don't have the Wofford loss.
Right.
Now if they lose to Prairie View on, I think, the 30th, that could be the same kind of deal.
No loss, buddy. Keep winning. Obi, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. All right, when we come back on TexAgs Radio, Mark French. We'll chit-chat with Mark about all things Aggie basketball related. After that, Connor O'Gara Saturday down south, and then Billy Liucci for the 10 o'clock hour. Of course, your phone calls and your text messages at 979-693-1150 on that Brian Foley Law hotline. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Be back in 2 and 2, like Chuck Woolery used to say. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Brian Foley Law hotline. By the way, good people can have a bad day. Call Brian Foley Law at 936-596-0407, serving Houston, the Woodlands, Conroe, and the Brazos Valley. We talked to our buddy Mark French here on the program, former player and, of course, a good friend. Mark, what's up, buddy?
Hey, guys. Gloomy day here in the DFW. I don't know if it's raining there, but it's certainly coming down up this way.
What part of DFW are you in?
I'm just in Uptown, so kind of close to downtown area. But yeah, hopefully it'll clear up here.
Yeah, man. So are you doom and gloom with the basketball team, or are you, all right, I'm okay with where we are right now?
I don't think you're ever okay with it, right? As a player, as a coach, or even as a fan, right? I think it's one of those things. It's like, all right, Florida Atlantic, you live with. You're like, all right, Final Four. You can kind of talk yourself into it. At UVA, you're without Boots and obviously without Marble. And then Memphis, you're like, all right, that's at home. We lost to them last year. That's the one where you kind of start to see some gnashing of teeth from the fan base and on the message boards over at TexAgs. So not panicked, but definitely I'm on alert now. And I need to see how they play against UH.
So we just had this discussion with Olin a few minutes ago. If I were to tell you before the season, hey, you're not going to have Julius Marble for the non-conference, and who knows how much longer if it's the entire season. You're going to have Boots miss a big chunk of your hardest games and come back right when it gets tough. Would they be above or below what you would have predicted, knowing that going into the season?
Probably right at it. Because if you kind of look at it, the Ohio State win's nice. But then the other ones, I mean, they're decent wins, but it's not any wow wins, right? And you don't get those wow wins against, the Virginias, the Memphises, the Florida Atlantics, unless you have your whole roster. And so, like OB was saying, I mean, it's really hard. It's an uphill battle when you're without, two of your top five in a lot of these, has been in a lot of these games or without Boots. So I'm not distraught, but I'm also slightly disappointed, I think would be fair.
Right.
I'd really like to get the Memphis game for so many reasons. You tag them back for last year. Plus, I just know a lot of guys on that staff. I grew up around a lot of those guys, and obviously in Memphis. So bragging rights is killing me this week, but it's okay.
Talking to Mark French here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, let's talk Boots, because in the first half, he was definitely quiet. He started feeling himself there in the second half. I maintain, look, I know how elite Wade is, but the way defenses are going to play him, if Boots gets off, it allows for Wade to get off. Do you agree with that?
100%. So there's a domino there where it's like schematically the defense has to prepare a certain way, and when Boots is out, the full focus just comes on Wade. And when you're in the locker room before a game and it's like, well, crap, man, they got two guys that can get us either way, and they're both slightly different, but very similar also in terms of wanting to get downhill, particularly to their left and finish. And so it's too much of a burden for Wade. He's not that type of guard where he's just overwhelms you athletically. And so I think having Boots on the court is such a counterweight to keeping the defense, off kilter a little bit. And then Wade is so crafty, and it just opens up some seams for him that when Boots isn't on the court, that you definitely see that he can struggle at times against more athletic teams. And so that's something to monitor as well. And it's part of Wade's growth process too, right? Like, he's never going to be Russell Westbrook athletically, but we know he's a smooth operator, right? And so, all right, how does that smooth operator operate against these top high-end athletic teams? The Memphis, UH is going to be similar. The SEC is going to be chock full of them. And so I think it's part of Wade's continued maturation process that should happen. He's got to figure it out soon, right? We're halfway through junior year. So he will. He's been phenomenal in so many games. It's just the next step, right? Becoming that elite of the elite player. So got to have Boots, got to have Marble if you want to go where we want to go, to an Elite Eight or farther.
How would you evaluate the starting five in general?
I think, Nuño, it's like Buzz doesn't really get caught up in it. I think the players probably get more caught up in it than the coaching staff does. I always look at minutes more than starting five, although the starting five can be a little perplexing. And a lot of that just is like, hey, Marble's not here. We don't know what's going on there. So it pushes guys into the lineup that probably shouldn't be there. As much as I love Levesque, Memphis is a Solomon Washington game, and he gets 17 minutes, right? And it's not like he was in foul trouble. He had two personal fouls. And it just leaves me, that's the one where I'm like, holy cow, against Memphis, we had the athletes to match them. And, you know, you look at what Manny did. That's Manny's type of game is, all right, we're going to go mano-a-mano. Who's got the better athlete? Let's get up and down. Let's execute. Let's hit some shots. Manny, Jace, Andy, Solo all came off the bench, and in my mind would have been like probably 4 of the top 5 or 6 best suited for this game. And so I don't know. It is, you know, and Memphis tagged us 38-29 in the first half. So we went it down 9. And I don't know. I think we have the athletes. It's just a matter of, you know, sometimes getting the minutes. So big game for Manny, though.
Yeah, I love look, Manny's one of those guys that I feel like he's going to figure it out eventually. Maybe there's like a Q kind of element to him, or like I feel like once he figures it out, I'm not saying he's going to get to that level of score, but I see him and I'm like, this guy's got the body, he's got the speed. He just got to play a little bit more controlled. But I also like how loose he comes in sometimes and the way he attacks the game.
Yeah, it's like you want to root for the kid so hard. You're like, man, I want to see this kid succeed. And you see it, right? Like even just the eyeball test outside of Solo or Coleman, you're like, oh my gosh, that is a high level D1 guard. And he's been that way ever since he came out of JP2 up here in Dallas. Like everyone has known it since his sophomore year of high school. And I think that's what's been so, not perplexing, but just kind of anxious excitement waiting on him to grow up. And I think Memphis, that was the type of game where he thrives. And I think we got to continue to monitor that, especially if Marvel's going to be out, right? You're going to have these guard lineups that can go get buckets. And Manny does not back down, and he will go get you a bucket. He can be efficient. He can hit some threes. He was 2 of 6 the other night. He's just another option off the bounce, and you can't have enough of those. I literally can't stress it enough. As you get into conference play, having 3, 4, even a 5th guard that you can throw out and say, all right, he can go get a bucket. That is a luxury very few have.
He's very similar to Solo in the energy department. Not necessarily the way they attack, but there's an energy that I think players feed off and also can dictate a tempo that other teams sometimes cannot combat.
Yeah, it's like the guard version of Solo in many ways, right? Top 100 kid coming out of high school, crazy athletic. You see it pop off the page when things are going right. They make some dumb mistakes to where you're going, what are we doing? But at the end of the day, it's such a net positive that you want to see both of them on the floor. And, look, if Boots, I was so glad to see him back in the lineup. Thoughts and prayers are continued with him, hopefully on the health front. But you start looking at it and you go, all right, Boots, there's a competition now. Like, if Manny's going to play like this, you're our guy. But if we're getting production like that, Manny's going to work his way in. And you're going to see those minutes. Look, their minutes were about equal the other night, 24-22. And, whoever's producing is going to play. And that's Buzz's mantra. And if Manny keeps producing, he's going to, continue to play. And so same with Solo. He's just got to continue to be efficient.
Let's play like and didn't like. What do you like so far this season? What are some things that you've really liked from this A&M basketball team?
I like the hot start, getting the Ohio State, the SMU. We're kind of cleaning up against who we're supposed to. I like the development kind of as we go. I like seeing different guys pop up. Early on, Hefner had a few big games. Now Manny's had a few big ones. Garcia's flashed. And so pretty much to me, that's showing, all right, we have the ingredients, and now we got to let the coaching staff figure out the mix. What I didn't like is that, out of these 3 games we've lost, I'd like to get one of them just because of the signposts on the way to a deeper tournament run, not just a first weekend, but a Sweet 16 or further. You hit these checkpoints, and Memphis was a checkpoint game. We talked about it last week. UH will be the same way. Now, if you lose to UH, you're 7-4, right? And you don't really have a marquee win. Ohio State could be a quad 1 win, but it's not a marquee wow tournament committee bumps you up a line or 2 because of it type win. And so they'll have to you really maneuver conference play, Nuño. You start playing around with the record. If you're 7-4, something doesn't go right against UH. suddenly, you 18 conference games, you got to be in that probably 11-7 range, which is tough sledding in order to get a top, 8-9 seed. And I really would love to see them get to that, 4, 5, 6 line. So we'll see.
Any other Elite Eight checkpoints that you need to see or you have seen?
I think I need to see better three-point shooting. Look, 18% the other night. This has been a continued trend, right? And I know the fans want to gnash their teeth at Buzz for it. Sometimes it's recruiting and it's development, but sometimes guys, are getting good shots in the offense. They just got to make them. And at some point, though, 6 of 33 is not good enough. And we should demand more from the guys. They have, all this stuff at their disposal. Wade can't go 0 of 9 in a big game. You got to have your best player be able to be the alpha on the court. And they had an alpha, right? He went for 29 points on 5 of 9 from 3. Jones did. And so 35 minutes. And so really, I'd love to see Wade continue to be an alpha in the big games. I see a lot of the ingredients, but I haven't seen it mesh. And so usually by this time, you've seen a marquee win. And you know what the good news is? They get to go beat UH, and all of this stuff goes away, right? But for me, I think the three-point shooting, it's almost as simple as let's circle that number and see where we're at on a night-to-night basis against the high-level competition. Low-level competition, you can go beat them up on the offensive glass and beat them with hustle. But to go where we want to go, there's a refinement in terms of, being efficient offensively that has to occur. We can't just, depend on offensive rebounds and out-hustling people and out-efforting people. It just doesn't, at some point, it doesn't work.
Well, Mark, you played the game at a high level. So, when a team, I don't look at A&M and think of them as a three-point shooting team. So, I think they're a streaky three-point shooting team. So, when you're missing threes, do you keep taking threes?
Yeah, well, certain guys should keep taking threes. So, I trust, right, Wade, Hef, Boots has earned that right. Obviously, Jace Carter, 1 of 5 the other night, but it looks the part. Manny's one where I'm like, I don't know, you're kind of in between depending on how the game's going. But, I mean, really what needs to happen is they need to go lock themselves in the gym, right? School's over. And everyone needs to make 400 to 500 threes a day. And it doesn't take that long. It takes 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes maybe. And that just needs to be, because at the end of the day, we can have the perfect offense and we can get a ton of offensive rebounds. But at the end, at some point you got to put the ball in the hoop. And if this team, it's all there on paper, all you got to do is be able to put the ball in the hoop. And, I don't know. I'm encouraged. I think we have the guys to do it. It just comes down to breaking the seal and seeing, a few games string together. Like if Hefner could hit 3 or 4 threes and for 2 weeks straight of games, that's such a confidence. That's a building block. And I think you take that same scenario and you apply it to Jace and to Manny and to Boots and to Wade, and you say, all right, we got 5 guys who on any given night can hit 3 to 5 threes. And you let it snowball from there. But at the end of the day, Buzz always says your reps make your rep. Their reps right now need to be behind that three-point line because that's where this is headed, is make the Aggs shoot threes until they beat us. And they haven't shown a propensity to be able to do that for extended periods of time yet.
A lot of that has to do with rhythm, though, right? Like you getting the shot where you want it, how it comes off the way it hits your hands, the way you set up, like so much of that. And I feel like they've been rushing a lot of their opportunities.
And overlay that, like you said, they're rushing. Overlay that with Boots' absence, right? And with Marble's absence, it's like when the dominoes don't fall exactly into place, sometimes the offense can just get off. And, they're double teaming Wade, so someone else is kind of making that pass and distributing the ball into the shooter's pocket. And I don't know. At some point, though, I think a lot of that is overrated. It's like, man, it's going to be hard, right? It's supposed to be hard. You got to find a way to put the ball in the hoop, though. So I'm really confident. I think they'll get there, and I think they'll play really well against Houston. I just really would have loved to get that Memphis game, if I'm just being honest.
Well, what is it going to take against Houston? What must they do? What can they not do?
Yeah, so like obviously you can't turn the ball over against top 5 team. You're gonna have to have a couple guys go for 15 to 20 points. I think you don't want to match exactly what they do, but you're gonna have to hit threes, like we just talked about, just the math in the modern game. And at the end of the day, Wade and Henry have to play like 2 of the top, call it 15 to 20 guys in the SEC, right? If they're going to be all conference guys, this is the game where you show it, right? And this is the game where, if Nuño, if you go get this one, what does that do going into conference and into Christmas? Suddenly the dinner table at Christmas when the players are home for 2 or 3 days, it's not, what are we going to do to get out of the hole? It's, oh my gosh, we beat UH. I'm very excited. I can't wait to go back Christmas night and practice. It's just a different dynamic. And so we always talked about splitting Memphis and Houston. That's still on the table. And so, but it comes down to turnovers, offensive rebounding, and 3-point shooting. You could literally circle those 3 categories the rest of the way and know if the Aggies won or not, probably.
Mark, when it comes to Houston, one of the things that I want to see A&M do is punch them in the mouth early. And because I expect Houston to punch early, right? That's in their DNA as well. But they have not taken on the level of team A&M has this year. That's just the facts of the matter. They are a seasoned team. They've gone through this. This is a program that is used to big matches. So I'm not saying it's going to be a shock to them, but up to this point, they haven't played somebody at the level of A&M. A&M has, so this is important for them to strike first.
Yeah, and both these coaches, they'll take it personally. I had the pleasure of meeting Sampson at the Final Four AIA breakfast last year. Unbelievable. Really was. I've known about it for a long time, but was just really impressed. But Buzz will take this one personally, and I would pay to be a fly on the wall for that locker room speech. And I think exactly what you said is going to be his approach, because he doesn't get caught up in the 3-point shooting. His is more about, are we winning the fight? That's his mantra. And I think if you're gonna do what you're talking about, Nuño, right, you have to have the guys with that kind of animalistic instinct, right? So like Solomon has a little bit of that where it's like he wants to strike for blood, right? Manny has that at times. Garcia has that on the glass. Obviously Boots can be that, but in a quieter way. And then Henry's got to own the paint. And so I think exactly what you said is so true. Is we're going to be the first to punch them, but we're also going to be the last. And it's going to be everything in between. We're going to beat them up on the offensive glass. We're going to play physical with them. They're not going to dictate. We're going to dictate from the jump. And I think that's what you'll see. I think they're going to get back to a grimy approach and kind of try to out-muscle them a little bit. So I think you hit the nail on the head.
Mark, last thing. I was talking to Wade on Tuesday, I believe it was, and he just seems so relaxed, but I mean that in a positive way. Not like, he recognizes that there's been some struggles this year with his game because of the way teams are attacking him, yet he didn't seem phased or frazzled. How important is that from your guy who leads you in shooting and attacking the rim and being just the SEC player that he is?
Well, I mean, look, teams take on the personality of 2 people, right? It's usually your coach and your best player. And especially when it's your point guard who has the ball, that filters down. And so Wade's confidence is going to filter down. And you talked about finding rhythm or making 3-point shots. If Wade can remain cool, calm, and collected, and he can get back to finding his rhythm and hitting some shots, what's that going to do? It's going to filter down like we saw earlier in the season against, Iowa State, SMU, Ohio State. When he's making those shots, what does that do? It makes the basket bigger for the other guys. And so that's not to put more weight on his shoulders. It's just reality is that your coach and your best player, they can never have a bad day. And whatever they do filters down to the rest of the team. And so Wade has an incredible aura and a confidence about him. And he's the type that he can go 0 of 9 from 3 against Memphis, and he'll come back and hit 6 of 11 against UH. So I'm rooting for him hard. I think they're going to play really well.
Mr. French, stay dry out there, buddy. Talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Y'all have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Mark French there on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. Appreciate his time. Let's hit a break here. We'll come back with an open segment. We've talked about a lot of stuff, right? Like what's going to make you happy, right, this year? Is there something that right now over the next, 6 weeks that will just make you kind of calm down with the ups and the downs, just kind of keep you even keel? A little Wade Taylor action. Is there something out there for you? 979-693-1150. We'll get to your text messages and your phone calls when we come back. Right now, don't replace it, lift it. That's Ascend Concrete Lifting and Support. You can call them up at 979-933-8527. They provide an easy, clean service at half the price of replacement. So driveway, sidewalk situations, if it's like cracked and is above, and you're like, I always trip on this. My older folks always trip when they walk by. No, get that fixed. You can lift it and make it seem smooth. You don't have to replace that whole concrete. Got a buddy the other day who replaced his driveway. It's like $12,000. You could do it for like half that price. They're problem solvers when it comes to the concrete issues. They raise jaws. They'll take a couple hours, start to finish, and your concrete will be ready to use upon completion. You got Brian Dickerson, who's an Aggie, and he really cares about this community, and they've got 60 years of professional service right here in this area. They want to educate you on the lifting process so you completely understand and feel comfortable with Ascend Lift. They are local, they are statewide, they are nationwide at 979-933-8527. They can lift, raise, and stabilize any form of concrete and slab. Once the project is finished, the appearance is close to seamless to the eyes. You got residential work that they can do, commercial, industrial, municipal. Remember, a fraction of the cost for replacement. It is Ascend. Convenient, free estimates, locally owned, and Aggie operated. Follow Ascend Lift on Facebook and on Instagram, or call 979-933-8527 for an appointment. That's 979-933-8527. It's a Ascend Concrete Lifting and Support. Don't replace it, lift it. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Not the Go Hour. Thought about it. Muscle memory happened right there. Appreciate everybody listening in this morning. Got some text messages we want to get to and whatnot, so we can do that. A couple things from the Mark French interview. What I really like about Wade Taylor, look, he right now teams are stopping his play, and if he doesn't have another guy to kick it out to, the offense is kind of stale, right? But he is calm, cool, collect when it comes to it. He knows he's got to play better, and he's got to play better in the framework of what Buzz is trying to do. But that's one of the beauties of having Buzz as your head coach, is that his teams evolve. We see it during a season, right? Like, it's not like all teams get better as the year goes on because they get more practice. It's a different kind of better. This is like dramatic better that we've seen a Buzz Williams team do multiple seasons, dramatically get better. So while they haven't reached the heights that I had kind of hoped that they would reach, they've got some things go against them, right? I think once you get Boots back to feeling like Boots again, getting into game shape, shooting, and I think it's going to open up. And that's a lot of pressure to put on a couple of the guys. But that's why you have one of the most tenured teams out there in college basketball. That's why we had these expectations, because Henry has been through it, because Wade has been through it, because Boots has been through it, because Manny, even though he was hurt last year, has been through it. Solo's got enough experience after last year that he's kind of mentally gone through it. Hayden Hefner, we've seen his growth. So the Chesapeake match, to me, when it comes to basketball, is the reason why I like, look, they played some pretty good teams. They don't have a marquee win yet. They're going to get a marquee win. It's going to happen. And again, they've played without a couple of their guys this year, and that makes a difference in the way you do your rotation, your depth. And also, let's not forget, one of the guys that they're missing that I hope they get back, but we don't know, and people keep asking, well, I don't know. It's a university issue when it comes to Marble. But he was the best player in that Penn State game, and he was the best player in several games, right? And one name I haven't mentioned once this morning is Anderson Garcia and his importance to that team. And like, if you have a couple of more of those chess pieces, it allows him to do more of what he's really good at. So all that I think will come to fruition. Big game. I don't know, like, I'm not predicting a victory against Houston. I don't predict victories. I think it's dumb. Or losses, whatever, right? Like, but I do think we're going to get the best version of A&M against the top team. That's what we're going to get. And that means they're going to have a fighter's chance to win that game at the end. I expect it to be a really clean performance from Texas A&M. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. We've got, go ahead.
No, go ahead, introduce, go ahead.
We're going to talk to the esteemed soccer enthusiast, Luke Evangelist.
Yes, I've got a text message about football, not the football that you just talked about, but American football.
Sure.
From Brendan in Colorado said, I'm confident in Elko's hires so far, so I'm not concerned about filling out the rest of the staff. I think the bigger task is filling the holes on our roster via the transfer portal.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, Ty Anthony Smith, recruiting-wise, is starting to lean in the wrong direction, unfortunately. Look, if there's anything good about the transfer portal, and there's good in it. I don't love it. I don't like it. I don't know. I just got to get used to it, whatever. But if there's something that I like about it is, like, when your recruiting class isn't what it should be, or you hoped it would be, you've got the portal as another way to satisfy those roster spots, right? And getting Will Lee was huge, guys. And some of these other names, we may not know a lot about them. There's some smaller schools. A year ago now, the name Trey Harris popped up on our radar. Now, a smaller school guy. He ends up going to Ole Miss, right? Luke, was Trey Harris a pretty darn good player?
Yeah.
Like, did he not annihilate A&M?
Yeah.
So those guys are out there. We just don't know who they are right now. They're out there. They're interested in A&M. We're recording them. Ja'Day Walker, a year ago now, we were excited about him, but he turned out to be a better than advertised player. Correct or incorrect?
Correct.
So get some of those guys in from some smaller schools that have that chip on their shoulder. Win 10 games next year, recruiting classes will come. They will come. I got to make myself believe that right now, because if not, I'll drive myself crazy. What else, Luke?
So I've got a message on the TexAgs chat. It's from Ty Holden. Says, my kids know who Eminem is because of his new Fortnite skin. It's kind of funny. Can we get a TexAgs Fortnite skin? So, David, I have two questions for you. One, do you know what Fortnite is?
Yes, I have two boys at home.
Okay. Do you know what a Fortnite skin
Yes,
is?
they had Cristiano Ronaldo. They had Batman. They've had everybody. Yeah, that's when you get to be that player, that person in that game.
David, you're telling me some of your hard-earned money has been spent on Fortnite skins?
Do you have to spend money on that?
Yes.
You don't get them for free?
No.
I thought they do some certain days that you get them free.
Maybe that's what they told you, but
well, I mean,
you might want to check your credit card transactions.
I check it. I feel like there's. How do you know this? Are you a Fortniter?
I used
everybody,
to play. Yeah.
Everybody plays
back
Fortnite.
in like my freshman year of college is when it blew up, and I was a hardcore gamer back then, but not anymore. I got a job now.
Yeah, and we make you work all day. So no games for you. Luke, do you still play games?
Occasionally I'll play. I was big. Fortnite blew up like my sophomore year of high school. So I was playing that all the time.
What?
Sorry to age you, Nick. But no, I think we should get a TexAgs Fortnite
How
skin.
do we apply? Like, how do you?
Somebody needs to have a connect.
Someone needs
Epic
to start
Games.
streaming or something.
Yeah.
A Billy Liucci skin? Holy smokes.
Oh my goodness. With him, when he went to that wedding dressed up in the felt
cowboy hat.
Oh, yeah, that needs to be the skin.
Yeah, I hope he's listening so he picks on you and not me when he gets back. Set a break. Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South, will join us. We'll talk all things college football with him right now. Milliken Reserve Time, farm-to-table community in College Station. They got homes. They got trails. They got wide open spaces with a mission to build a healthy community around nature. And they've done that by dedicating to the conservation of a healthy community with respect to that native landscape and wildlife. They've got 2,600 acres of open space and farms and trails out there. They connect families to nature and to each other with an extensive network of trails throughout a wooded landscape. Great place to go if you're into horseback riding, if you're into hiking, if you're into biking, if you're into evening yoga or maybe even day yoga. They got the farm tours, the farmer markets, the summer camps, the music festivals. They got it all out there. Wonderful community, and you get your veggies. You can just go enjoy nature, be outside, be with each other. It's an awesome place to go. I highly recommend it. You know, if you're coming in from Houston, you'll get there right as you're passing Navasota. Look on your left. If you're coming from College Station, going back on Wellborn, look on your left as well. However you get there, go check it out. Milliken Reserve, the website, millikenreserve.com. Again, millikenreserve.com. One of my favorite dudes out there, Connor O'Gara, joining us here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. He's on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. What's up, bro? How you been?
I'm doing well, man. It feels like it's been a couple minutes here, but good to be back. Is there anything going on in College Station? Is there just like a couple of moves or anything that I should be aware of?
Well, look, man, I'm gonna explain the way I looked at the Jimbo era to where we are now, and because I think you were one of the first ones who eloquently and politely, at least when I started this gig, was against the Jimbo era. And when I say against, you just didn't think it was going the direction it should have gone. So the way I looked at it at the time was, he's getting all these, when you get this much talent, Ed Ogeron can win a national championship, right? You can't mess this up, but they messed it up. And I don't think it was until last season, I definitely had my doubts, the 22 season. I definitely had my doubts. I was like, just fix the freaking offense. Like, fix the offensive line. You're good. Once you fix the offensive line, you're good. And it didn't matter. The offensive line was never fixed, and here we are. But you saw that, I think, 3 or 4 years, even right after the Orange Bowl, you saw some flaws in the way he was going about his business. So I'll let you take it from there.
I'll be honest. After the Orange Bowl, I thought they were turning the corner with a few things. I thought that with the job that they did establishing an identity in that 2020 season, albeit a season with a lot of moving parts, and not to take away from A&M entirely, it is a little bit different to play on the road in the SEC when it's reduced crowds. Like, I think we can all look back and admit that. But there were still some cracks in the foundation from the standpoint of like, all right, how are we going to see this offense evolve? For the previous 3 years, Jimbo Fisher had one quarterback. Kellen Mond's durability is such an underrated thing in what he brought to the table, because we've seen it in the 3 years after that. It felt like A&M couldn't have a starting quarterback stay healthy. And how much of that is because your offense is too predictable, your offensive line that you thought was really good in 2020 because it had all that continuity in a year in which nobody had any continuity. Like, how much of this is going to be sustainable? And even when you have a talented offensive line like what they had this past year, you're looking up like, how is this group getting beat on a weekly basis? That shouldn't be happening. And that was the same stuff that we talked about at the end of the Jimbo Fisher era at Florida State. So, yeah, I mean, I think we can all pick and choose different spots in which we could say, well, this wasn't working here, that wasn't working there. But reality is, when you got 6 years, you've got enough time, and you can't just have that one good season that makes you feel like, all right, this thing is going in the right direction.
Well, I think the first 3 years were a little bit of a climb, right? You win 9 that first year. I think you win 8 the next year. Then you win the 9 out of 10 games. But since then, train wreck. I feel like Elko's the right guy. He says the right things. He's got that blue collar mentality. He's doing some things different than Jimbo did already. He understands the issues inside and out. Now, recruits may not feel that same way right now, right? Like that part's up in the air. But I think if he gets the right transfer dudes in here, they can have a pretty solid season next year. What do you think from what you've seen so far from Mike Elko?
I don't think I've ever said anything negative about Mike Elko. I don't think I have. Today is not the day in which that's going to start. When this search began, I was kind of hoping that Elko would be the guy. And of course, because of the way that the last hire played out, you still have to open up yourself to the possibility that maybe it is going to be Lane Kiffin. Maybe they will make a big swing and go after Dan Lanning. I think that still there was a part of me that wanted to see Mike Elko come back to College Station, because I loved the things that he did in the 4 years there. And I thought it was so vastly under discussed, nationally at least, how good that defense was. And I think even in 2021, where that offense was a disaster, but why were they still able to win 8 games? Because they're the number 3 defense in the country. And Mike Elko did that year over year. And the fact that in the 2 years that he spent at Duke, he won more games than A&M did in that 2-year stretch, it showed you this guy knows how to build a program. He knows how to develop talent. He's going to put guys in the right spot on the defensive side of the ball. And I think, to me, that hire made a lot of sense. Now, TBD on whether or not he's going to continue to make the right moves. You still got to, know how to handle quarterback battles, and when to fire a coordinator, and when to adapt here, and when to do this there, and when to, you got to be able to hit in the portal these days. But, I like what I've seen so far, just from the simple fact of bringing in Colin Klein is a move that, if you could have told me Mike Elko is going to make one coordinator hire and go after a guy, like, that's on the short list of the 2 or 3 that I would pick. If you could pick anybody in the country, and he went out and got him. So I like what I've seen so far from Elko, and I continue to sing his praises.
Makes sense of this temporary restraining order there where transfers are going to be, you can be a multi-transfer athlete right now. Like, it's just, Olin made a comment earlier, I think it was before the show, but has the NCAA ever won a court case? Do they ever win anything? And here we are again, for the next few weeks at least. You can transfer as much as you want, guys.
Yeah, it's difficult. I'm actually, before I hopped on this call, I'm in the midst of a very deep dive into the guys in the 2021 class and 2022 class in college football and how many of them have transferred. How many of those top 100 recruits from each of those 2 classes that have transferred. And then I did the breakdown in the SEC of how many of those blue chip recruits, 4-star and 5-star guys, have transferred, because I think it's a little bit too soon to look at the class of 2023, because those guys are technically only like a semester into college, even though they enrolled early. And it's fascinating. And obviously A&M was gutted by the transfer portal in those 2 classes, and the amount of talent that they lost, especially from that historic 2022 class, is well documented. But it's college football wide. And so my entire point, and the reason that I wanted to look into these numbers, is because if you're going to be sitting here at this time next week bummed about your team's class in the early signing period from the high school level, I would say don't be as bummed. And if you're super excited, I would say don't be as excited, because half of these guys about at the blue chip level are transferring, and they're not even getting to that place where you're like, oh, we're going to see this guy, on the field, and he's going to be a potential all-conference player for us. So it's something to keep in mind for A&M as well. If you're disappointed with this class and you're looking around, know that the transfer portal has taken on such a more important role in recruiting, and the early signing period is kind of taking a back seat.
Connor, let's. I read your column, I think 3 days ago, on the coaches in the hot seat in the SEC. Let's kind of take them piece by piece, because I think it's interesting. Sam Pittman survived. Obviously makes a splash hire there with OC. If you think Petrino's a splash hire, Shane Beamer, a guy that a year ago today everyone's like, oh, watch out, they're the team. Billy Napier, they're the team, and they got a brutal schedule. So just take it from there.
I consider Bobby Petrino a splash hire. I do. He's a splash wherever he goes. Robert Patrick Petrino, of course he is. And look, he improved the A&M offense. I mean, let's be honest. It was a better product to be able to watch. And I love what Jalen Henderson became in that offense. I think that guy is just an absolute gamer, and he was fun to watch with Petrino with the controls. Look, I find myself wondering, are all 4 of those coaches, and I'll include Clark Lee in that group, because I think when you go winless in SEC play in year 3, it's definitely something that an athletic director has to take into account, even if the bar is extremely low at a place like Vandy. I find myself wondering if all 4 of those coaches are just already kind of, kind of in a rough spot. And for lack of a better word, I think they're kind of screwed. I do. And I look around at the transfer portal, and when Sam Pittman is losing a Rocket Sanders and TBD on KJ Jefferson, and you're looking at Billy Napier's situation, Nick De La Torre had the tweet where half of his first signing class has already hit the portal. Like, that should be your foundation. That should be going into year 3. And Billy Napier is looking up at what everybody's calling the most difficult schedule in the history of Power 5 football. I mean, they have more teams at the Power 5 level that clinch bowl eligibility this year that are going to be on that upcoming schedule than that 2019 LSU schedule in a 15-game slate. Like, it is that brutal. And then, you could look at a place like South Carolina. I was singing their praises. I thought they had a potential to be second in the East. And if their portal budget's going to be kind of limited with all the roster holes that they had this past year, like, how's Shane Beamer going to find his way out of that in year 4? So, yeah, I think it's more difficult than ever for some of these groups to be able to retain the talent that they want. And Vandy is a prime example. I mean, they've just been absolutely gutted by the portal. So, yeah, it's just a really difficult go for a lot of these teams in the SEC.
Connor, last thing for you. Jim Harbaugh, you think he ends up in the NFL next year?
I'm hoping that he ends up with my Chicago Bears right there.
All right.
I'm hoping. Look, it just never works out this way for the Bears. It just doesn't. And if he doesn't end up there, could he end up with the Chargers? Yeah. I think he does. And I was talking to Jake Butt, the former Mackey Award winner who played at Michigan. He does a great job on the Big Ten Network now. And he's like, yeah, I mean, it does kind of feel like a bit of a last dance, so to speak. And there is a vibe that this group is going to have a lot of turnover. And, we don't know yet what that turnover is going to look like from a coaching staff standpoint. But I do think that there are going to be people that are kind of like, man, how do you come back when you don't know the NCAA restrictions that he could have? And if he's facing yet another suspension, you're like, what in the world are we getting ourselves into if we're Michigan? So it could just be the time in which both parties say, you know what, let's just go our separate ways, start over, appreciate the work that you did do here, and move on and know that the program is at a better place than when you inherited it.
Connor, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much, man.
Appreciate it, man.
Talk to you soon. Connor O'Gara there on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. All right, we'll hit a break. We'll come back with Around Aggieland. The Billies are actually already in the lobby, so we'll chit-chat with Billy here momentarily. If you're looking for a reason to move back to Aggieland, what you need to do is you need to reach out to the Association of Former Students because they are hiring professionals. We just had them in studio just a couple days ago, and I'm telling you, they're looking for great people with awesome opportunities there at the Association of Former Students. They are the premier alumni association and the oldest organization serving A&M in support of that Aggie network, and they play a huge part in every Aggie story from Howdy to here. So don't miss an opportunity to help out the association with Howdy Socials, Aggie Green Day, class reunions, Aggie Muster, and everything in between. Join a team that exemplifies those Aggie core values of excellence, integrity, leadership, loyalty, respect, self-service, and support of that worldwide Aggie network. If you're interested in joining a team or sharing with someone that would be an awesome fit, what you need to do is go to tx.ag/association jobs to apply and get more information on each position. It is the Association of Former Students. This time is not my fault. All right, Kay? I broke on time today.
Not blaming you.
TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Time for Around Aggieland, presented by Norman G. State Bank. Norman G. State Bank, rock solid banking. The website, normangstatebank.com. She's Kay Naegeli.
I am. There's quite a bit still going on, even though school is technically out for the holidays. But Texas A&M Athletics is set to graduate 29 student athletes across 10 different sports at the fall ceremonies. Just to point out a couple of those names, some football athletes, David Bailey, Fidel Diggs is getting his degree. Max Johnson.
I think Fidel already posted a
yes,
picture.
he did. Isaiah Rakes also did
that
as well. Alex Zettler was a part of that 12th man kickoff team. He's getting his graduate degree. And then our very own Kendrick Rogers, who contributes to TexAgs. And then also Carlina Sample. She does stuff with Allie. She's one of
family
our own
right
as well.
there.
I know. We have a lot of, and Kennedy Cavan, have to shout her out too. One of the great people on TexAgs Radio. And that's how I got to know her. So it's a little sad that that's coming to an end. But anyways, moving on to some more football. The 2024 schedule is here. SEC announced that on Wednesday, I believe. You can just check that out on our site to see all the games. A&M will kick off with Notre Dame, and then, of course, end with Texas on my 23rd birthday.
Hey.
Yeah, it's quite a birthday present. I saw that. I was like, oh, yeah.
Wait, when is your birthday?
November 30th next year.
So I thought you just turned 21.
I just turned 22.
Wow, but I remember when you turned 21.
Yeah, I've been here for quite a while. It's called I'm growing up. I mean,
but it needs to slow down.
I know. I think I was 20 when I first stepped in this office. Maybe not. I don't know.
You were 6.
Seriously, it's been a while. Anyways, bowl game practices are underway. Texas A&M is preparing for the Texas Bowl. And then also in 1 week, Texas A&M linebacker Edrin Cooper has been named to 5 different All-America teams.
Is that good?
Yeah, you would think. 3 first teams, ESPN, AFCA, and the Associated Press, and then second team to the FWAA, and then Sporting News, second team. Like I said, Edrin Cooper had a heck of a year. And, John Harris had some good praises about him the other day. And then additionally, newcomers Torian York and Chase Basantes earned ESPN Freshman All-America accolades, which is awesome. They had both great seasons. Recruiting, Texas A&M, early signing day is coming up this Wednesday, or next Wednesday. So make sure to stay in touch with all the recruiting news. I know Bronny and Jason Howell have a ton of stuff on that, especially visiting names this weekend. Men's basketball touched on it a little already, but they will head to the Bayou City for Saturday's Halal Guys Showcase as Texas A&M will face number 4 Houston. That game is on Saturday at 1:30 p.m. on ESPN2. If you cannot head down to Houston, make sure to check that out. The Aggies are hoping to get a big one. And then women's basketball did have a week off, but they will continue their December stretch at Reed Arena for a December 18th matchup with Mississippi Valley State at 7 p.m. So best of luck to all Texas A&M teams out there, and congrats to all the graduates.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kay, great job as always.
Thanks.
You know who's coming up next?
Mr. Billy Liucci.
He's early.
He is.
He
was back there.
I saw him at 9:38, and I was like, bro, this ain't real.
Well, I know.
It ain't real,
No
but it's
way.
real. Billy Liucci coming in studio. When we come back, we'll talk some coaching stuff. We'll talk some transfer portal. We'll talk everything. I'm sure we'll talk about something non-sports related because that's how it goes sometimes. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Appreciate those of you watching and listening wherever you may be. Billy Liucci is in studio. Billy, good morning, buddy.
How you, David?
I'm good, man. I'm good, as good as I can be. Let's.
We got some product over here from our proud sponsors at Rogue. Which
tell me more.
There's a problem here. These are. What are these? How do I specifically? What do I call these here? They're gummies. They're THC gummies, and sometimes, David, I think you and I would need those to relax in the current climate of Aggie football, recruiting, the whole works. They would probably be pretty good for some of us. Maybe those on the boards when you just need to lighten up. Before you hit post, take one of these, or if you really want to post some crazy stuff, take one of these here, the green crack ones.
I don't know if you heard the opening segment today, but it was basically about that, like the ups and downs.
Yeah.
It is really like this last 3 weeks, there's been so much of both. When you're losing, it's a lot of bad. When you're winning, a lot of good. Right now, it's like one day good, one day bad, one day good, one day bad.
Which one would you guys recommend to kind of manage the highs and lows of recruiting and Aggie football right now? We might need the green. Okay, so the green crack ones, your wives will probably thank you.
Like if you have road rage issues.
You don't get quite as mad over the portal.
Right. Well, we'll get into that, but I thought we could start off with the schedule because I didn't get a chance to talk about it yesterday. We knew what the season was going to start looking like, and we knew how it was going to end, but now we got everything in between. They got the schedule up there. Just how do you think it plays out for A&M?
I mean, I don't know how it plays out because I don't know what the team's going to look like yet. Yeah. But and by the way, I'm making jokes, but there's some really nice things happening right now in terms of the current roster. Those of you that are like, I've been getting a lot of this from friends, people that I see, at restaurants or the gym or around town. They're like, give me some good news. That's kind of how everybody leaves it. If you want good news, you want something to feel good about right now, what's going on with the current roster? And I know people they saw a couple guys, Bryce Anderson, Cam Dewberry, say they were staying. And it's like, I saw some of the commentary and people kind of get annoyed, like, well, yeah, why do we need an announcement that guys are staying? You can't have it both ways. You can't cry about guys like Walter Nolan or Chase Basantis or Fadil Diggs going in the portal and Tyreek Chappelle and then not be happy when they stay because you've come up with your own reason why they stay. That's college football in 2023 and beyond. Like, no one in Austin is crying because they had to pay Quinn Ewers to get him away from Texas Tech. No one's crying in Austin because Xavier Worthy kind of held them hostage and had one foot out the door this offseason. They're actually celebrating along with those players as they go to the college football playoff. That's the world we live in today, and people need to start, I think, as fans and even as donors, like wrapping your head around this new world. And I think this new world is probably not long-lasting. I think it's too just off the rails in every direction. I think there's, I've said it a million times, they opened up Pandora's box and without any thought as to what might happen. And I've talked about it. Bronny's talked about it. Like, every single player out there, if I want you, all four of you might think you want to come to A&M. And maybe A&M, all five of you, I'm looking at 5 people, by the way, all y'all want an NIL deal because that's college football today. So every recruit, every player is going to want one. So maybe A&M has enough for all you guys, and you have 5 other schools you're looking at, and you're good with 4 of them, but that 5th one is going to pay you exponentially more because they desperately need a DN. And a different 5th one is going to pay him exponentially more because they desperately need a cornerback, and they desperately need a wide receiver at this school. There's always going to be somebody that jacks up that price.
Right.
And that's the same for your current roster when people are trying to poach. And I'm not sitting here acting like I think A&M under Mike Elko should go and poach players from other schools, just like schools try to do to A&M. I think Jimbo was that's one of the things I don't think he was really willing to adjust to and kind of waiting till guys got in the portal. You cannot do that anymore. And if you do, you're not going to keep up with the teams that all these donors and all the people that hired you and signed the contracts expect. And that means playoff berths. That means SEC title contention. That means top 10. So you need to, I really do think you need to embrace the current college football. And that goes for Elko and his staff. That goes for the fans. And that goes for, especially for the donors. It's like a chicken and egg thing now. A&M's in a nice spot, NIL-wise. There are more schools that you think that are better. And so everybody, I get the feeling, is sitting back right now going, they're kind of burnt out in the last, David, it's been a 3-year slide. And they're going, well, kids today. Well, guess what? Kids today play at Alabama. Kids today play at Georgia. Kids today play at Washington. Kids today play at Florida State, who was left out of the playoff. Kids today play at Texas. They play at Michigan. That's all. It's all 2023, 2024, 18 to 22-year-olds. Everybody's got them. You can't just say, I don't like the direct. You can't say that and then also want Texas A&M to be relevant at the highest level. And so it's a chicken and egg. So if you're sitting back waiting, then you're doing Mike Elko and Texas A&M a disservice, and you're saying, hey, it's been left in a pretty bad state. Good thing is the roster is not.
Right.
But like the momentum is nil. When Jimbo Fisher left, the momentum was nil. So if you're going to wait, that's going to make it a tough, much tougher rebuild for Mike Elko and the Aggies. Because if the right people dive in and say, okay, we're gonna backfill it, and we're gonna help you and kind of jumpstart this thing, then you can roll. That's what they did in Austin. That's what they did in Baton Rouge. That's what they tried to do at USC for Lincoln Riley. He's gone and screwed that up in just 2 years. But that's the way to do it, because once you fall behind, all it's going to do is cost you a hell of a lot more. And this place could be Arkansas or South Carolina with really nice freaking facilities.
Well, is there enough talent out there in the portal now or potentially soon to help get through what it feels like the lack of momentum at the moment?
Absolutely. And I think they're doing a hell of a job. Like I said, next year is what's most important. They're doing a hell of a job with the roster, and I think you're going to see big name after big name staying. There's one or two still. One in particular I'm like kind of keeping a close eye on. I'll let you guys try to guess who that is that I could still see leaving. But for the most part, not for the most part, damn near the rest of them. And I think they've got a real chance to bring Basantis back in. I think they're still in there swinging with Nolan. And there's a couple guys that still haven't gone in the portal that might in the next couple of days that I think would surprise some people as well, that will have real interest in A&M. But with the players coming in, even this weekend, they've got 2 corners this weekend, Oregon State and Mississippi State. A Mississippi State corner had like a 2nd or 3rd round grade. I think a 3rd round grade. If they were to get those 2 corners to go with Will Lee, now all of a sudden that position you go, that should be a real strength. With the guys you have on campus plus them. And 2 weeks ago, that was our biggest concern as far as a weakness goes. During the season, it was the biggest weakness. You could answer that like that. And so there's some real opportunity there. I think they're going to have to do that at wide receiver as well as go get some guys. They recently saw guys that they were interested in go to Kentucky and Louisville. Again, look, Louisville's doing great things in the NIL space. They're organized. Their fans have mobilized. Their primary donors have. It's the same thing that's happened at Missouri. Look, go look at what Drinkwitz and Missouri are doing right now in NIL. No one pays attention here at A&M or in the state of Texas to the Missouri Tigers. They're kicking, they're kicking ass in the NIL space right now. And part of it is, look, they had this big year, they're winning, but it was trending that way before this season. It was trending this way before the season. They beat OU for the 5-star pass rusher, and they got Luther Burden. They're doing things right in that space, more so than most teams.
So would you say A&M is still, though, I think you said a week ago, tell me if I'm wrong, that A&M is still probably in the top 10 when it comes to NIL, top 8 potentially?
Yeah. But it keeps escalating. But I don't, and I think if I'm selling people on this, I'm like, it is a sprint. It's not a marathon.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, what's the game called you guys play? Little kids when you're in school, is it Duck, Duck, Goose?
Duck, Duck, Goose, great
No,
game.
not Duck, Duck, Goose. That's where you chase them around.
Right.
It's musical chairs.
Oh, yeah.
Or is it Duck, Duck, Goose?
They're both
No,
similar.
Duck, Duck, Goose, you tap them on it. It's musical chairs. When the music stops,
You got to sit.
you better have a chair at the table, because at some point, and it could be soon enough, they're going to say, okay, we're not doing this anymore. Here are the rules. Here are the regulations. Here are the guidelines. Here. And when that happens, the teams that were the real players, the true players, and the teams that got out in front, and the teams that didn't say, well, let's wait and see if we win, then I'll wade back in. Then you can come talk to me. The ones that don't do that and are proactive are the ones that are going to have seats. And you want to have a seat because you're in the SEC, and I can tell you, Alabama's going to have a seat. Georgia's going to have a seat. LSU will have a seat. Texas will have a seat. Auburn will have a seat, probably. It seems like it right now with Hugh Freeze. They're starting to roll. You see some of the players they're getting, and it's like, okay. Ole Miss will even have a seat.
They look good right now.
Well, they're doing good in the portal.
Yep.
They're doing really good. Now, they're also taking some guys at A&M. I'll say this. There's a few of you on my board. Stop acting like jackasses. It's a small percentage, but I feel like it's growing. You know who you are. It's a tiny percent. Don't do the, Liucci called us. No, 99% of you know I'm not talking to you. And you also know who the people I am talking to are. When Princely Umanmielen goes to Ole Miss, it is not the cause of a meltdown, because at no point did you guys hear, or were y'all informed by us or anyone, that A&M was going to go all out and go all in to try to get Princely back in the state of Texas. I think if he ends up at Ole Miss, I would just say there's a reason he's not in Austin or College Station, because he's a good player. And by the way, you had a guy that coached him on the D-line at Florida here in College Station. So there were some assumptions when Sean Spence was hired that, oh, man, we'll go get – well, if they didn't go all in, just think about that before you come and start posting on the message boards and stirring up mass panic. Right?
No, yeah. Look, I feel like they have a certain type of player that they want to bring in, and it starts here too. It's not just the production on the field. Yes, we want production on the field, but you've got to fit with Mike, what Mike is trying to get done culture-wise with this program.
Every new coach does that, has to go through that. And if you're really that worried about it too, I would say go check Jimbo Fisher's 1st December signing. He signed 8 guys. I don't think very many of them at all were premier prospects. They added Leon O'Neal. They got him back late. They added Bobby Brown late.
2 real ones there.
And that there wasn't a lot. Jalen Preston was a big deal then, and could have been good in the right system. I still think he was woefully underutilized, but he's another one that was big late. They didn't do much early. Remember, they went and added all those 2 running backs from Florida, Corbin and Strong. They added, a tight end from Louisiana that lasted like a year. The class ended up being a major bust of a class. But even a recruiter like Jimbo, who we all agree, even on the way out, was an elite recruiter, he only got 8 guys at the beginning. For Elko, I think it's important to get some kind of momentum. It starts with the roster, and then it goes to the portal. But in recruiting, the Derek Lagway thing frustrates me, because I do believe Texas A&M could get him. But I think Florida got to him so early in terms of the total package. And,
right.
They're playing for him. There's an NIL element, all of that. And I think A&M could get him.
Still.
Yeah. But I don't know if they'll be able to push that across the finish line. And if they did, I think what a momentum changer. And I think of that young man in Colin Klein's offense. If you've watched Kansas State, I think that is your guy that you go, okay, if you're going to go from Wigman to either a developed Marcel Reed or him, I'd feel really good about the future of the quarterback position at A&M. But even more so, what that January signing stretch could look like. Because guys like Don McKinley are going to wait. Dalen Evans is going to wait. Terry Bussey is going to wait. If Lagway comes on board, you might convince a few other guys to wait. Wait in a good way.
Have you seen?
It could change a lot, man. That young man could change a lot for A&M recruiting. But again,
here's the thing. I don't know if Billy Napier is going to make it through a month of that season or 6 weeks. They start off with
might
Miami.
Get fired if Lagway comes here.
Well,
there's a lot of pressure.
Miami, A&M. That's in the first 2 weeks of the season. Those are two of their first 3 games.
Yep.
At Mississippi State. I don't know who Mississippi. At Tennessee. At Texas. At Florida
Billy
State.
Napier. You need some green crack bites.
So we teased it. Just any thoughts on the schedule itself, though? The A&M football schedule, if we can put it back on the board.
I think that's as good a schedule. It's funny. It's funny because I was on my comments on Twitter, which is always a dangerous place to be, but everybody, all the Longhorn fans are going, oh, this SEC schedule's not that bad. They got a gift of an SEC schedule.
They did.
Well, guess what? I think A&M had a gift of an SEC schedule last year and this year. Not the last 3 years has not been a truly rough SEC schedule by any measure. Now, this one, even more so. Because I look at that thing, and look, I think Auburn's going to be vastly improved. That's one of the most dangerous games on the schedule. I think that, obviously LSU and Texas, LSU, and Notre Dame, right? Missouri's going to be really good.
Yeah.
So, unfortunate that you caught Missouri, and I think Auburn's going to be. But my point is this: Notre Dame at the beginning. You open SEC play with Florida and Arkansas. Couple wins in there as well. In this league, that's as good an open as you can have.
Yeah.
Even with Notre Dame, they might have Riley Leonard as their starting quarterback, but they're going through a lot of transition too. They're coming in here. Look, until you get Missouri, and then that's a tough one. And then you got an upstart Mississippi State. And then you got another tough one. And guess what? Your 3 toughest games probably. I wouldn't even say Notre Dame's in your top 3. I think that's going to be Missouri or Auburn. But your 3 toughest games, biggest name opponents, they're at home. You've got 2 bye weeks mixed in there. What you always get scared of and you look at are like brutal back-to-backs. Where's that? They're your last 2 games of the season. So, where is there a brutal 3-game stretch? I don't see it. I don't think that exists. So, the schedule is laid out as nice as you could ask for. It's a very tough schedule. I look at what A&M's got, and, we don't know what the Aggies are going to look like yet. But I see at least 4 teams, if not 5, that are going to be ranked ahead of A&M to start the season. Notre Dame, Missouri, LSU, and Texas, potentially Auburn. So it's not easy. But it's laid out as good as you can ask. And look, there's no Bama. There's no Georgia. And there's no Ole Miss. Ole Miss is going to be way up there next year.
Yeah, they are.
You probably miss, counting Texas, LSU, right? You miss 3 of the top 5 teams in the league, in my opinion.
By the way,
Missouri will be up there.
I have my questions about LSU next year. What are they going to look like without Jaden Daniels? You expect them to reload, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think LSU takes a massive drop.
Yeah.
They're going to lose Brian Thomas. They're going to lose Malik Neighbors, and they're going to lose Jaden Daniels. I mean, I think they take a massive drop down. It's just crazy to say right now. If I'm ranking the SEC, just without going in order, my top 5, I would say with what's coming back, Alabama is going to be there. Georgia gets the benefit of the doubt, obviously.
Missouri?
I would probably put Texas with what they have coming back off a playoff team, and I would put Missouri.
And Ole Miss?
I would definitely put Ole Miss. And I think it's a pretty clean cutoff after that.
Yeah.
And then it's like, who is it? Is it Auburn? Is it A&M? I don't think it's Florida. I don't think it's South Carolina or Mississippi State.
Is Arkansas better if they get KJ back and Bobby Petrino?
I don't think they get in any kind of top 5.
Yeah. All right, let's hit a break. We'll come back. Let's talk a little bit about recruiting with signing day not that far away. We're talking Costa Vida at the moment. That's the place to go when you want some fresh Mex food. Holly's great over there, and they have laid-back, counter-style, Baja-inspired Mexican food there. When you go, you're going to get the ultimate fresh Mex made your way exactly the way you love it, where everything is fresh and scratch-made. Taste the difference where every ingredient matters there at Costa Vida. Some of the signature dishes there, they got the sweet pork quesadillas, ultra-tender pork cushion, first seared, then slowly braised. You've got the raspberry chipotle chicken salad, the shrimp tacos and mango salsa, the chips and the queso, and they are fresh every day, warm. They're delicious out there. That is the place to go in South College Station or anywhere you are here in the Brazos Valley when you want fresh Mex done the exact right way. They've got breakfast there. The breakfast tacos are fantastic. Lunch and dinner open all the time, and they can help you out for catering, graduation parties, you name it. They've got your back. Aggie owned and operated, 4501 Mills Park Circle in College Station. Again, 4501 Mills Park Circle in South College Station is Costa Vida. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studios. So signing day, a few days away. We kind of touched on a little bit of like some of the ramifications. Got some visitors visiting this weekend. I think both transfer portal and also some youngsters. So just I don't even know how to phrase it. Like where are things trending? But some of the bigger names we've heard are starting to think elsewhere. Where are we with Ty Anthony Smith and all some of the other bigger names?
Well, I think Bronny and Howell and the gang were out in front. I'm actually pulling up. I'm trying to pull up the visitor. There it is. They were out in front of the Ty Anthony Smith thing, and everybody kind of tried to deny it. For whatever reason, I think the Texas side was trying to deny it. They were trying to keep a big secret. But they, I think he's leaning heavy Texas. A lot of these kids they've kind of been working back channel deals. You saw Draylon Miller end up at Colorado. You're seeing Ty Anthony. There was a group of them that I think disconnected from A&M a while back, and they just kept it, a secret until they found the right landing spot.
Right.
And then so it's going on till the finish line, and then they're like, oh, by the way, here's my landing spot. But I came and gave you a courtesy visit with a new staff that I don't know, and that's because there's not going to be, I don't think there'll be any holdover. And that was a decision by Mike Elko, but it was also a decision by Elijah Robinson. And I'll before we go on, let me say this. I get all the frustration and angst and annoyance at Elijah Robinson being in Don McKinley's house in a Syracuse shirt and then being in that building working the next day. I think it's stupid. I don't know where to direct my frustration. Is it at Elijah? Is it at Ross? Is it just the situation? Is it at college football and the way it goes today? Is it at Elko? It's not at Elko. It's not at – I don't think it's at anyone. I think it's the situation. Now, I do wish in hindsight, I think Ross Bjork's probably gone – I should – and I do truly believe this. Should have just shaken his hand and said, you took the job, go.
Right.
Thank you. You can address the team, whatever. Because then he can go recruit Don McKinley and anybody else that he wants. He can come try to rip A&M guys from the portal. Look, it's a dog-eat-dog world. I don't care how nice you are. I don't care how upstanding you are. We want Mike Elko and his current staff to go get guys. People are pissed. Not pissed, but there's certain people that are complaining because A&M didn't go with Sean Spencer and go rip Princely
right.
to College Station. So we can't do you cannot do both. You can't be mad about one but also mad about the other. You have to pick how you feel emotionally and where your moral compass is on coaches leaving and recruiting from a former team. So, but what you can do is say, I don't like a coach getting paid by A&M and coaching this football team, going and doing an in-house visit with a player, a 5-star recruit that's very important, which, by the way, I think it's all about this Dominic McKinley recruitment, in my opinion. Because I don't think Elijah Robinson's sitting in Bright or at practice trying to poach players to Syracuse. Because, first of all, most of them wouldn't go. And if they would leave and transfer somewhere for one last shot somewhere, they're probably going somewhere where they think they can win a title or somewhere closer. So, number one, I don't think that's going on. And I do think he's above. I know he's above that. He's not his thing. And that doesn't mean like one or two guys might not end up going there that are from the Northeast. That, oh, by the way, probably we're leaving anyway. And Don McKinley, you're going to have a much harder time holding on to him with other schools than it is Syracuse. But I just think Elijah should have sat that one out. Don't go in-house with Nick freaking Williams. Like, you could sit that in-house visit out. He's going to wait until January. You could have said, hey, for obvious reasons, I'm not going to come to this in-house, but you're a priority for us, and I'll see you in January. That's what I think he should have done. What I think
Didn't he say he was not going to go after A&M players?
Players, yeah. I'd have to go back and hear the
quote,
the actual quote, and see what kind of semantics. Because I wasn't paying close attention because I knew, but I didn't. I think he should have set out that particular in-house. Could have gone in January. Okay. I think that's his mistake, is wearing those colors in-house with an A&M commitment that he recruited there and then coming back to work the next day. I think Ross's mistake was I would have told him, thanks, we'll see you. Can't do that now, guys. So people that want to do that now, I think that would completely throw off everything. These kids want to play for Elijah in this bowl game. He's got them practicing really hard for a group that truly has nothing to play for. The practices have been good this week. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of, the coaches, I think, feel like, hey, this is my chance. James Coley, Jim Chaney, like this is our chance to run the offense, call play. Like there's some excitement there. You can't, at this point, 10 days out, just tip over the whole thing. When you're doing such a good job, like I said earlier, with the current roster, it just runs the potential for a disaster in the locker room, and there's no reason to do it now. But you could have way back then, and it would have been completely understandable. No one would have gotten shaken up about it. You had a guy in DJ Durkin that's been a head coach. So hindsight, yeah. I think that was a mistake, but I also think Elijah going in-house with Dom was the wrong play, especially when you're going in there with another former A&M assistant in Nick Williams. So it is what it is. I don't think he's going to go to Syracuse, and I think the real battle is does he go somewhere else? And so it's weird that if he had not done that in-house, I think this whole thing would be
quiet.
Pretty damn quiet. Yeah.
Let's hit a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about those ball practices and some other areas as well. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Billy, we got some visitors this weekend. We started talking about it, but we didn't actually get into some of the names. I know initially there was talk of the Oregon State trio coming in, but we have one gentleman coming in.
Yeah, you're going to have a corner who's from Texas, so that I think he's a pretty important one, Jermod McCoy.
Yep.
I believe from White House out in East Texas, had a really good year at Oregon State. Again, you look at this list, and I'm looking at 5 defensive backs. 5 DBs from everywhere from Mississippi State, where there's 2 of them. I mentioned DeCam Richardson. He's the guy that is elite. I'm talking about, there you've got one from Liberty that he's going to be probably A&M Colorado. Central Michigan DB that I think they really like, Trey Jones. And then I mentioned McCoy. You've got a linebacker from Youngstown, a receiver from La Tech who had about 800 yards receiving last year. I'd like to see more receivers on that list. I think you're going to see A&M add to this list. I know it's Friday. I think you'll see another player or 2 here this weekend. We just haven't put the names out yet because they're not officially locked in. When they are, we will release those names. The other 2 Oregon State players, they're brothers, linebacker, first team all-conference, safety, honorable mention all-conference. I believe they're at USC this week. I'm not positive. But they have pushed back their visit here till January.
Okay.
But they're in conversations with A&M. There's a lot of interest there. That would be a significant – God, those 2 would be a big deal. But I worry about them going to a place like USC right before signing day. Never mind the fact that USC hadn't played defense. Lincoln Riley wouldn't know a defense if it punched him in the face. And it seems like opposing defenses in the Pac-12 have been punching him in the face the last 2 years, even with a Heisman Trophy winning QB. So you'd think he'd recognize it. But and then the duo from Tampa.
Running back
the running back who – they need a running back in this class, and the defensive end Solomon Williams. So Solomon, I think he's pretty elite as a pass rusher, dude. I really do, and he was basically committed after that Mississippi State game, and then literally the next morning, Jimbo gets fired. It throws everything back for a loop. So getting him back on campus with a new staff is actually really big, and who knows, maybe, just maybe, Elijah Robinson's still helping you out on that front, which I actually believe he is. So anyway, it's a good visit list, but what you got to see are some closes. You got to see some closes in that secondary in particular. And then you got, 2 guys. Miles Davis seems pretty locked in. He's been one of your best recruiters. I think he's going to have a real opportunity to play early here. But Dalen Evans and Tristan Jernigan. Dalen Evans has recently said he's going to keep it open through January. He's kind of been one that you've never felt like is fully in the fold.
Yep.
But let him develop a relationship with Sean Spencer. Let maybe A&M get some momentum on the recruiting trail moving into January. Let Elko hire a DC and see where it goes. And Jernigan's A&M Bama right now.
He was just in Bama, right?
Obviously scary.
Yeah.
You're recruiting against Nick Saban and Bama. But he's been one of your longest – both these guys have been long-term commitments. So this weekend's actually very important for those 2 as well. They got to start getting some momentum in the high school recruiting front. It's going to be hard to do. I'm telling you, and nobody wants to hear it because everyone just wants to sit on their hands here, but I think DJ Lagway could be a real key to unlock all of that to make January pretty interesting and pretty fun.
And then Colin Klein plays a huge role in that. What he can do with that level of quarterback. Does Connor play a role in that?
I'm sure they'd love for Connor to help recruit, and Connor's not the type that's not going to do it. Connor's all in, and he's actually coming in today. Jalen Henderson's coming in. Connor's coming in. So we'll have fun talking to the QBs today. I'll be really interested to ask Connor some of his, because I talked to him after Elko was hired. I've not spoken to him in an interview setting since Colin Klein was hired. So that should be really insightful.
Yeah. And then you mentioned, I know you won't say any names yet, but there's some other names we could be adding to this. So this list right now could even get better by the time Sunday rolls around.
Yeah, I think it will. I mean, I'm not teasing some dramatic, wild fireworks here. I'm just saying, I think there's a couple names that will end up adding to the list that A&M is pretty interested in. Obviously, they're bringing them in this late in the game.
Basketball time?
Sure.
Shall we?
I'm ready.
Because, this is, you sometimes give me a hard time about when I do my bank on it. You're like, I don't get specific enough. And here's another one. I'm not getting specific enough. But I believe A&M basketball this weekend will have their best performance against the top team than we've had this year. I'm not saying their best performance because DePaul is going to be hard to top what they did against them. But I think they're going to match U of H's intensity as they normally do. They're going to bring, I think, Boots will be much more comfortable after getting a whole game under his belt. I think we're going to see a different Texas A&M team than the one that played Memphis.
I do too, and I think this matchup is interesting for A&M. I think U of H is an infinitely tougher team than Memphis. They're an infinitely better basketball team than Memphis. They're going to go further than Memphis. But I think athletically, just across the board on the roster, Memphis is up there with most teams A&M will play, including U of H. So I think Memphis presented a different type of problem for these A&M guys in terms of when the Aggies were playing defense.
Right.
I think that created a whole different problem. I agree with you, though. Boots, I think Wade, this is going to be a gut check game for Wade. I think Wade's an incredible college basketball player. I think he's going to go down as one of A&M's best ever. But this is a gut check game for Wade Taylor. Like, hey, come out and prove it. You want to be an All-American? You want to be first team SEC Player of the Year? This is a type bounce back game you look for. You're in your home state. You're playing against a top 5 team. You know what Wade did last year, in the showdown against a top 5 team? He balled out.
He did.
You know what he did against Tennessee late in the year? He balled out. He's done that this year a couple times. When they lost to FAU, Final Four team last year, he went crazy. He did it. Was it Ohio State where he had such a good game, or which one was it?
Was it Penn State?
Maybe it was Penn State, yeah. But he's risen to the occasion. This will be the toughest occasion to rise to. Because of all those teams I mentioned, maybe Tennessee, but really they're second, but it's probably a distant second because no one D's up like these guys do. Memphis, though, the way they came at Wade was to take him out of the game.
Which is a blueprint that I think teams are going to adopt.
It is. I just wonder if U of H feels like they need to. They might go about their business and say, hey,
this is
what we do. We shut teams down. And so Wade's going to have to step up. Boots. Henry Coleman's got to be a man. And I'll tell you where A&M's going to have to win. They're going to have to out-rebound the Cougars. They're going to have to win the battle of the board. So guys like Solomon, guys like Anderson, they're going to have to really step up and have big afternoons for the Aggies if they're going to win.
You mentioned Wade, and I've said this a few times on the show or over the years. Legends are made in the postseason and in these kind of matchups, right? And Wade has stepped up. But the reason we talk about AC so much is because of what he did in those games that mattered. And this is an opportunity for Wade, again, before you get to SEC play, before you get to the tournament, to kind of strengthen that legacy.
No question about it. And he'll have several chances this year. But now they won't play a team ranked higher than the Cougars this year. That much I'm certain of.
And I think the fact that U of H hasn't played anybody is really good for A&M. The fact that they have not played a team at the caliber of A&M, I know A&M's not ranked, but the battle scars that A&M has had, and they've played top-notch teams this year, U of H has not. U of H is still as good as their ranking says. They are one of the top 5 teams in the country, but there is an adjustment when you get hit in the mouth for the first time.
No question about it.
Yeah. All right, let's hit a break. We'll finish up with Billy here on the final segment of TexAgs Radio. If you got any questions for Billy, you can do it on the hotline, or you can text it in at 979-693-1150. You're listening to the TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. I don't know what he did, Billy, but apparently Kanye did another rant, so that's trending on Twitter right now. Who knows? That guy.
I still want them to find whatever. I just never mind.
TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. I have not heard
There's certain things where it's just not worth opining. I like to talk about football and sports and.
Well, I want to talk about Tommy Moffitt because I did not hear
talk about A&M's new strength coach.
I haven't heard the interview yet. I'm planning on doing that today.
He'd probably whip Kanye into shape.
He'd probably whip all of us into shape.
Yeah.
He might become my new best friend here in town.
Yep.
If I get a chance, I'm going all in on that relationship.
I'm really fired up about it. But what makes me the most excited, and I said it the other day, is when we called in, just the feedback I'm getting from LSU people, and I'm going to retweet it today. I was talking to T-Bob. He's the first one that texted me when that hire got out, but he had a great interview with him. I know you watched it. I want to make sure every Aggie sees it and tell me you don't get fired up about A&M football. And like what T-Bob said is, because he can't say he thinks A&M's going to win a lot of games because he's like me. It's the last thing he wants to see happen. Like, he wants A&M to lose every game. I want LSU to lose every game. But he's like, damn, the one thing I do know is that Texas A&M will not be a soft football team anymore. And even in that interview, you could get a taste for his energy, what he's going to demand of these kids. And like I said the other day, I think Mike Elko is going to empower him to be the culture setter and be the enforcer and be the guy that it's not just about, hey, you're not working hard enough or you're late or you're going to be punished. There is something to that to say, hey, guys, you're not late to my weight room. And if you're late once, this is what happens. If you're late to whatever, however you want to do it, there's one thing to rules and enforcement, but it's also like, how do you motivate?
Yeah.
There's a positive side to getting the most out of these kids too and being demanding. And so there's a reason he's considered one of the best in the business. I think you watch that interview and you realize that he's been chomping at the bit to get back into it. That was not a retirement from LSU. He wasn't close to ready. That was just a coaching change. That was a coaching change of a culture that Ed Ogeron destroyed. I heard Moscona talking about it. Did you see his Instagram reel? He was like kind of admonishing the LSU fans saying, y'all think it was Moffitt? Like, you had a head coach that since he's gotten fired has been like trying to fight people shirtless in Cabo. He's he was going up and down the list of the things Ed O has done since, during and since. It's like it was an Ogeron thing. It wasn't a Moffitt thing. It was Ed O. 2 years before, he had trained a national title program with more draft picks than anybody since like the 90s Miami Hurricanes or Nick Saban in Alabama. And, Kelly wanted to come in and just wash it all clean and bring his own guy. That's what happens. That's what happens a lot of places. That's what Elko's essentially doing here. He was his guy from Duke stayed at Duke. Might end up being the biggest blessing that's happened is you were able to go get Tommy Moffitt instead. And I think he thinks very highly of his guy at Duke, but Moffitt might be just what this program needs right now. And we spent a lot of time talking about it, and we said culture more than I want to say in the last couple of years. And if you let this guy change it, he will. And I think Mike Elko is fully committed to letting his strength coach help him set the culture of the program day to day.
It feels like the guys he's hired so far, and I know everybody can't wait for the next hire and this hire. We got to get this guy in, and we got to get the wide receiver coach and defensive. But the ones he's made have all been like, I think no-brainers considering the situation. Moffitt was a no-brainer. He an upgrade. Colin Klein, an upgrade. Like, I feel that way. Sean Spencer. You lose Elijah.
No one talks about Ish. He's a great
Ish.
recruiter,
There you go.
And he's done a really nice job at DBs. And I was talking to some people close to all of them, and every defensive coach Elko hires, it's going to be an extension of him, And so I think that's why you're seeing him be so deliberate with this DC hire. That and the fact that, look, man, signing day is in like 4 days, 5 days. 4 days. That's the priority. It's signing day. It's a guy like Lagway. It's this recruiting class. It's the guys coming in this weekend. It's the transfer portal. It's keeping players on the roster. It's trying to get Chase Basantis and Walter Nolan back in the fold. Like it's eyeing the portal for guys that could go in where something has to happen within, 48 hours or so. That's taking precedence, but I also think he's being very deliberate on the DC front because he's turning it over to them, so he wants it to be an extension of himself.
All right, 2 minutes left on the show. Basketball-wise, we touched on it, but you feel pretty good about this performance this weekend? You're expecting to see the Aggie team that we expected to see before the season started?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a game. This is a game where I mentioned it, the bigs and the guys up front, in the front court and the rebounders, and it's like you go, damn, you wish you had like a Julius Marble in this one to go along with all that. But you don't. So those guys are going to have to step up. I think this is a really tough matchup for not just A&M, but for anybody. But I said this. U of H is going to lose a couple games this year. I don't think it'll be many. It might be 3. It won't be that many. But they haven't really played anyone, whereas A&M has. You look at the two schedules, there's no comparison at all. Now, I think U of H will probably still be undefeated on their schedule. Maybe they have one loss. There are some teams A&M's play that on an off day for Houston, they could have picked them off. But this is as good a basketball program as there is in the country right now. Okay? You're talking about the Dukes, the North Carolinas, the Kansases. U of H could play with any of those teams. And what Kelvin Sampson's done is pretty incredible. But, they're playing they're like, you may as well be playing Gonzaga right now.
Yeah.
Minus the 20 years, but over the last 5 years, you may as well be playing the Zags. But A&M coming off the loss they did. Wade coming off the game he did. Boots with, a game to shake off the rust and a week's worth of practice. And the chip they should have on their shoulder, I do expect them to go in there and make this a hell of a basketball game. U of H and Bama played a war last year at this time of year at the new arena, the Fertitta Center. I think A&M and U of H should play a similar game tomorrow. I'd be a little disappointed if they don't.
We got to drop it there, Billy. I know you got a couple interviews coming up here, so make sure everybody goes to TexAgs.com, become a subscriber, check out Texas Aggies United. All right, that's going to do it for TexAgs Radio on a Friday. We'll see you on Monday. Thanks.